Chapter 556 /P. Although Hai Lan Lan had her own thoughts, she had a cold personality and didn't know how to get close to others. In addition, after the matter with Bai Xingyuan, Qin had become even busier and she couldn't get close to him. But as she thought about how Qin Yu had exposed Bai Xingyuan's true face at the critical moment, Hai Lan Lan's mood surged and she felt even more admiration towards him. His Highness was truly someone that no one could see through. Even in danger, he always had a hidden card to deal with it, as if nothing was difficult for him. Hai Lan Lan's thoughts flashed through her mind, and her face flushed red. As she was lost in thought, there was a knock on the door. "Miss Hai, His Highness requests your presence." Hai Lan Lan stood up, a look of pleasant surprise on her face. She deliberately waited for several breaths of time before saying, "I understand." After the maid left, she hurriedly adjusted her appearance and headed towards Qin Yu's main hall. "You're here. Let's sit down and talk." Qin Yu rubbed his face. After seeing so many people these past few days, he had laughed so hard that he nearly cramped up. After that storm, Blue Sky Yellow Springs had lost a great deal of face. Yuan Tsongsheng and the others were shocked and angry, but they were also left speechless from embarrassment. In the end, they had all been schemed against, and because of a single spy, they had almost provoked the Holy Palace. Calamity Immortals were already top characters of the demonic path. Although Bai Xingyuan didn't meddle in worldly affairs, who knew if he was hiding some sort of disaster? That day, Yuan Tsongsheng and the others hurried back to Blue Sky Yellow Springs. There was probably going to be a thorough investigation. But no matter who it was, they had to admit that Qin Yu had risen to the limelight in this matter. It could even be said that he had made a great contribution, and the attitudes of countless people had changed. Because of this, he had been busy these past few days. He had received many demonic path characters, and most of them had come in the name of paying respects to the Holy Sun. Hai Lan Lan revealed a look of concern. "Your Highness, please take care of yourself. Don't tire yourself out too much." Qin Yu thought about how she had played around with him. He coughed and said, "It's fine. I've had some harvests." As he spoke, he couldn't help but smile. He really had to thank the Mu family. They had helped him quickly win over the hearts of the demonic path and helped him gain a foothold. More importantly, in order to achieve this, the Mu family had sacrificed themselves. Although he didn't know how the Mu family was doing now, from the demon attendant's happy expression, it couldn't be too good. In order to compete for the throne of the Holy Monarch, it wasn't a big deal to use some private methods. But to collude with spies to murder the Holy Sun and neglect the interests of the entire demonic path, that was a grave mistake. Even if they had a deep relationship with the Mu clan and were close to them in the past, they were now estranged. Of course, this was also because Qin Yu had stabilized his footing and was gradually gaining momentum. The Mu family was likely going to decline. Seeing Qin Yu so happy, Hai Lan Lan also smiled. She wanted to say some small talk, but she didn't know what to say. Finally, she returned to the main topic. "What matter does your Highness have with me?" Qin Yu took out a storage ring and placed it on the table. "I will soon return to the Holy Palace and try to find a way to obtain the Saint Sun's seal. Since I can't leave for some time, I had the demon attendant help me collect some wind lettergrass. You should go back to the Endless Sea and deliver it to Fushan. That way, the patients in the city can get rid of their sufferings one day earlier." Hai Lan Lan was startled. She didn't think that Qin Yu would remember this in his busy schedule. Her eyes couldn't help but turn red. She stood up and earnestly bowed. "Thank you, Your Highness." In the past, her mother had died from exhaustion. In order to save her mother, her father had tried to rush out of the Endless Sea, but in the end he had died. "There's no need to be like this. I am the commander of the Holy Netherguard, so this is only my duty." Qin Yu didn't want her to worry too much, lest she become sad. He waved his hand and said, "Hurry and go. Tell Fushan about my current situation and tell him not to worry. Just say that I will return soon." Hai Lan Lan nodded. Then, her face flushed red. "Your Highness, you are a good person. I... In the end, she didn't say anything. She turned and ran away. Tuba stood at the entrance of the hall. He looked at the blushing Hai Lan Lan who was running away in panic. He stuck his head out and grinned. Qin Yu glared at him. "You're not allowed to laugh. You should have been an honest person, but now your head is filled with all sorts of nonsense." He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples, a bitter smile on his face. High Landland's mood was clearly a bit off. Although he couldn't help but feel proud that he had managed to leave an impression on such a cold beauty, it also gave him a bit of a headache. High Lanlan was a proud woman. From their time together, it could be seen that he couldn't tell her this. He could only think of other ways to distance himself from her. His thoughts raced, but he couldn't come up with anything for the time being. Qin Yu put it down and reconsidered the matter that the demon envoy mentioned. When the Holy Palace opened, the inheritance stone tablet that had suddenly appeared in Skyreverence Square, as well as the strength that had tried to take it away. After Qin Yu told the demon envoy about this, the two of them discussed it and came to a conclusion. That stone tablet wasn't prepared for him. Although this matter didn't seem to have a clue, it was actually quite simple to speculate. The one who had the ability to contact the Holy Palace and also had the confidence to enter first and obtain the inheritance stone tablet was the Mu family. In other words, Qin Yu had taken something that originally belonged to Mu Mo. It was no wonder that Brat had such a resentful expression on his face that day. Qin Yu didn't feel the least bit apologetic about this. What he and the demon envoy worried about was that since the Mu family could form a connection with the Holy Palace, there might be some twists and turns in the matter of taking out the Saint Sun seal. It was because of this that the demon envoy had Qin Yu postpone entering the Holy Palace. He had already ordered people to make arrangements to cut off the hands and feet of those damned women. It was likely that there would be results in several days. In the dim hall, the pain screams became increasingly low until they finally vanished. The Mu family old ancestor threw away the withered corpse in his hands and wiped away the blood from the corners of his lips. The violently shaking aura within his body gradually calmed down. He gasped for breath, his complexion incomparably ugly. The effects of the blood sacrifice were becoming increasingly poor, and he didn't have much time left. If he couldn't, then within 100 years at most, he would welcome the black curtain of death. Thinking of this, the Mu family old ancestor's eyes surged with an ominous light. Yao Bin, he roared with extreme hatred. If it weren't for this bastard, he wouldn't have fallen to such a state. He took a deep breath and walked deep into the hall. He opened a hidden stone chamber and walked in. It was even darker here, without the least bit of light. It was unknown what the Mu family old ancestor did, but a mass of pale green flames suddenly appeared in the air. After a long time, a blurry face appeared within these pale green flames. Its gentle voice was filled with an endless chill. "Mu Yunli, you still dare to come looking for me?" The Mu family old ancestor had no expression. "Empress, there's no need to be angry. Things didn't turn out this way, but now that things have come to this, we can only think of a way to remedy the situation. I have already fulfilled my promise. It was you who encountered an accident. Mu Yunli, you have truly disappointed me. That junior is now a saint's son, and nothing can be changed. There is no need for words between us." The face in the flames was about to fade away. The Mu family old ancestor roared, "Empress, besides my Mu family, no one else will agree to your conditions. If Yao Bin really succeeds the Holy Monarch throne, then you will suffer the same fate as the Mu family." He took a deep breath, a sharp light surging in his eyes. "I know that Empress cultivated a fragmented arcane art in the past. The Mu family can give you the second half." The pale green flames rose. "Mu Yunli, are you speaking the truth?" The Mu family old ancestor said, "Of course. But Empress must agree to a condition of mine." The face in the flames was silent for a moment. Then it said in a soft voice, "If you really take out the fragmented arcane art, I guarantee that Yao Bin will never return." The Mu family old ancestor lifted a hand. Demonic light surged in his palm, and a jade slip appeared. It was clearly missing a piece, as if it had been broken by someone's fingers. "In order to express my sincerity, I will now give this fragmented arcane art to Empress. I ask that you abide by your promise. As for the Mu family's previous agreement with you, it is still valid." He lifted a hand, and the pale green flames swept up the jade slip, causing it to vanish from sight. The room fell into darkness. And in this darkness, the Mu family old ancestors' deep and low voice echoed out. Yao Bin, I haven't admitted defeat yet. You might not be able to have the last laugh. In the dim palace, a cheerful voice suddenly echoed out. It was soft and tender, making one feel happy. Lin Yunqing, it was you that stole half of my arcane art in the past. If it weren't for you, how could I have fallen to my current state? Towards the end, the voice gnashed its teeth, filled with endless hatred. Especially when spoken in such a gentle tone, it left one feeling even more terrified. After a brief silence, the voice sounded out once more, becoming light and light once more. It's just that you never imagined that this arcane art would return to my hands in the end, right? Haha, this is truly a pleasant surprise. Once my supernatural powers reach large success, the entire demonic path will bow beneath my feet. Your Mu family, I will cleanly exterminate them. Who told them to have the same bloodline as you flow through their bodies? That smell is just too disgusting. Haha. Gentle laughter constantly echoed in the dim palace. The demon envoy frowned. He looked at the sphere in his hand. Are you sure there isn't a problem? Qing Ruhong was expressionless. If Lord Demon Envoy doesn't believe me, then return it to me. The demon envoy revealed a bit of embarrassment. Of course not. When it comes to the path of spells, even if you look at the entire land of divinity and demons, there is no one that can surpass Elder Qing. But because this matter is too important, I was a bit cautious and inadvertently offended Elder Qing. I ask that you forgive me. Qing Ruhong lightly said, It's true that I don't like Yao Bin, but he is the Holy Palace's saint's son. I won't fail to distinguish between public and private matters. She nodded and left. Concerning the existence of the endless sea's great array spirit, Qing Ruhong had already explained it to everyone. Although there was no absolute right or wrong in the endless sea, the great array spirit had still died under Qin Yu's hands. Qing Ruhong was a person that drew a clear distinction between love and hate. She disdained lying. Now that she had received a guarantee, the demon envoy felt a bit guilty and also relaxed. The sooner he obtained the saint's son's seal, the sooner Yao Bin would be safe. Bai Xinyuan's appearance had left a great restlessness in the demon envoy's heart. Who knew whether or not there were others hidden within the demonic path? The demon envoy stood up and quickly left. He soon appeared in front of Qin Yu and solemnly handed the sphere to him. After entering the holy palace, use your blood to activate this object. It can temporarily block out the array formations within the holy palace. Even so, you must still be cautious. Those women in the holy palace have already gone insane. If there is an accident, do not hold back. Chapter 557. This was the second time he had entered the main region of the holy palace. The first place he arrived at was still Sky Honor Square. Qin Yu swept his eyes around. Because the Mu family had delivered the inheritance tablet to him, the grand event of a fierce battle had ended in a hurry. Strictly speaking, he hadn't truly entered the holy palace yet. Now, all he could see was a forest of palaces, dignified and solemn. He didn't know if it was because he had become the Holy Son, but he didn't feel any urgency. Rather, he felt a little closer. But even though he felt closer, Qin Yu was well aware that he wasn't the Holy Palace master yet. He had to be careful in his actions. After all, he had seen far too many people fail miserably. He flipped his hand and took out a sphere. A drop of blood fell from his finger and was instantly absorbed by the sphere. Ripples appeared on its surface, and then it bloomed, turning into a dark gray flower. It flew up from his hand and rapidly spun in the air. Flower petals howled out, shooting into every corner of the holy palace. Like a giant net, it temporarily blocked the holy palace's great array formation. Qin Yu didn't pause. With a thought, the little saint robe appeared. He closed his eyes and sensed it. After several breaths of time, he opened his eyes and flew away. In this direction, in the dim hall, the stooped black-robed figure sitting on the throne suddenly raised his head and looked outside the hall. He let out a light laugh. What a clever and cautious junior. You actually have a way to ban the Sacred Palace's array formation. But do you think this is foolproof? Below the throne, the tall figure frowned, worry in her eyes. She was secretly anxious when she heard a question from above. Girl, do you know why I summoned you here today? Yuchi hurriedly gathered her thoughts. She respectfully said, This servant does not know. I asked Empress Chan to explain. The black-robed figure's voice was gentle. Girl, you should know that ever since you unintentionally entered the Holy Palace, many people have been envious and coveting of you. If it weren't for my protection, you would have already died. Yuchi gratefully said, This servant will never forget Empress Chan's graciousness. If there is a chance in the future, I will do everything I can to repay you. Haha, you're too good with words. But there is no need to wait for the future. I have something I need your help with today. The black-robed figure lifted a hand, and Yuchi froze. Her heart was filled with anger, but there was only fear in her voice. Empress Chan, why are you like this? Did I do something wrong? The stooped black robe trembled as she stood up. With a flick of her sleeves, the black robe on Yuchi's body was torn to shreds. Looking at that pale face that was even more beautiful because of the fear, her eyes showed infatuation. What a beautiful girl. Bengong knows that you are smart. Even though you are afraid, you hide it well. I know that you are you. I know you're always, but I do you. Empress I that I will to do. I will, and I will you. Yuchi bit her lips, not saying a single word. Her heart was filled with despair. She never imagined that in the blink of an eye, death would arrive. As she thought of Chinyu, who was not too far away and didn't know the dangers that were about to arrive, she felt even more sorrow and regret. If she knew this would happen, she would have risked her life to give him a wake-up call. But now it was too late to think of these things. From beneath the black-robed figure, a withered blue and purple arm stretched out. The flesh and blood were like dried meat sticking to the bones. A gentle voice carried with it a bit of blurriness. Girl, give everything you have to me. Pa! A finger touched the point between Yuchi's eyebrows. Thinking about it, it was because of the effect of the demon envoy's sphere. The entire journey was smooth, and he didn't encounter any trouble. He could sense that the Saint Sun seal was getting closer and closer. Shua! Chinyu came to a stop. He looked up at the grand hall in front of him. Amongst the endless palaces, it wasn't particularly eye-catching. It was only the blue-gold door that made one feel a bit of nobility. The Saint Sun seal was inside. After a moment of hesitation, Chinyu flicked his sleeves and the blue-gold door quietly opened, revealing an incomparably dark grand hall that left one's heart filled with dread. But since he had already arrived here, there was no reason for him to be afraid. Chinyu stepped into the grand hall, and his body seemed to pass through an invisible barrier. Then, a warm, soft, and bright light rushed towards him, and he immediately revealed a look of surprise. Within this grand hall, there was actually a small garden. It was beautifully constructed, and all sorts of exotic flowers and grasses flourished. There was also a small lake, stone bridge, and flowing water. The tranquility of the garden made one feel relaxed and happy. Light, zither music spread out from the garden. Looking up, one could faintly see an octagonal pavilion sitting behind a rockery with several ink-colored tiles peeking out. Chinyu's eyes flashed, and he didn't sense anything wrong. His eyes flashed, and he followed the stone steps towards the pavilion. Although he didn't reveal anything on the surface, he was actually on high alert. He could instantly respond to the slightest movement in the wind. The garden wasn't too large. After several dozen steps, the pavilion appeared in his line of sight. A bit of water vapor rose up, causing the figure within the pavilion to appear a bit blurry. But it wasn't difficult to determine that this was a beautiful and enchanting woman. Moreover, Chinyu didn't know why, but he felt a faint sense of familiarity. As he was bewildered, the zither music suddenly stopped, and the beautiful woman in the pavilion stood up. She turned and bowed. "This servant greets your highness, Saint Sun." Her eyes were watery and warm like spring water, penetrating straight into his heart. If it weren't for the many experiences he had experienced over the years that had tempered Qin Yu's will, he would have cried out in alarm at this moment. This woman in the pavilion was Yu Qi, but as he observed her, her temperament and demeanor were completely different. Moreover, she didn't seem to recognize him at all. His thoughts raced, but Qin Yu maintained a calm expression. "Who are you?" He carefully observed her reaction. As Yu Qi saw this, she became even calmer. She respectfully said, "This servant inadvertently entered the holy palace several years ago. Now, I am serving under Ani-chan." Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat. This was quite similar to Yu Qi. Could it be that some accident had caused her to lose her memories? But now that he was in the holy palace, he couldn't afford to be careless. His eyes flashed, and he said, "I came here today to take the Holy Sun seal. Since you are here, you should know where it is. Take it out." Yu Qi smiled. "This servant has been waiting for a long time. Your Highness, please wait a moment." As she spoke, she lifted a hand and patted the surface of the lake. Bang! The bottom of the lake violently shook, as if an earth dragon was flipping over. Water shot into the skies like a torrential downpour. In the blink of an eye, Yu Qi beside the pavilion was soaked in water, revealing her graceful figure. She was faintly discernible, extremely alluring. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. Then he composed himself and looked up into the skies. As the lake water fell back down, a golden dot appeared. This was a square seal wrapped in a transparent bubble. The Holy Sun seal. Yu Qi lifted a hand, and the transparent bubble fell into her hand. It immediately burst apart. She bowed and offered it with both hands. "I ask your Highness Holy Sun to examine it." Because her clothes were soaked and stuck to her body, the view of her chest was limitless. It was so white and exquisite that it left one's heart racing. Qin Yu carefully looked at her. As if attracted by this scenery in front of him, he paused for a moment and then stepped forwards. There were some lotus flowers planted in this lake. Now that they had been ravaged, countless petals were scattered in the lake, emitting a faint fragrance. This fragrance drilled into the nose. There wasn't the least bit of sweetness, but rather, it made one feel invigorated. Everything in front of them suddenly became clear. For instance, this beautiful woman who was bowing her head in front of him. Beneath her soaked dress, her chest heaved up and down as she breathed. An indescribable aura began to spread through the air. Qin Yu's footsteps were still steady, but there was a bit more of a trance in his eyes. His mouth felt dry, and he unconsciously licked the corners of his lips. Yu Qi bowed, a warm and gentle smile flashing in her eyes. Indeed, even after 100,000 years had passed, these smelly men's conduct hadn't changed at all. But to her, this couldn't be any better. Qin Yu reached out a hand to take the seal, but for some unknown reason, his hand shook and fell onto the exposed wrist. Yu Qi lightly coughed. Her body seemed to have been pulled out of her, and she slumped over. Her beautiful eyes were half closed, blurred, and her face flushed red. She said in a low voice, "Your Highness," this light cry was like a spark falling on an autumn grassland. In the blink of an eye, it ignited a prairie fire. Qin Yu's breathing became heavy, and a strange red light appeared in his eyes. He stared straight at the beautiful woman in his arms. He gulped, and his throat rolled up and down. "To be able to serve your Highness is the good fortune of this slave. I ask that your Highness take pity on this slave." Yu Qi muttered in a low voice. Her words were like small hands scratching at one's heart, making one feel uncomfortable. Qin Yu lifted a hand and gently stroked her face. His fingertips seemed to contain an invisible demonic power that caused Yu Qi's face to flush red and her body to twist. Just as her jade-like hands wrapped around Qin Yu's neck and she was about to kiss him, she suddenly froze. This scene was incomparably hot. Anyone who saw it would think that what followed would be a boundless spring. But the harmony was too strong, and the plot was doomed to be reversed. Yu Qi's beautiful eyes widened. She looked as if she had been wronged. "Your Highness, why are you doing this? Do you not like me?" Qin Yu's heart was still fiercely beating in his chest. His face was flushed red, but his eyes were cold. "Just who are you?" Yu Qi's eyes flowed with tears. "Your Highness, do you suspect that I have disloyal thoughts? You already know this servant's identity. Qin Yu's eyes became even colder. The lotus flowers in the lake and the medicine smeared on the seal. Do you think I can't sense it? Most importantly, I presume you'll feel very depressed because the body you've chosen today just happens to belong to someone who's very important to me. He took a deep breath, and his voice suddenly became gloomy. Every syllable exuded a feeling of dread. You had best guarantee that she hasn't suffered any true harm, otherwise I guarantee that you will regret it. Yuqi's eyes were still wet with tears. She stared at Qin Yu for a moment and frowned. Really? Seeing the chill in Qin Yu's eyes deepen, she sighed. This is really... She didn't continue, but her meaning was clear. Your Highness, the truth is that I never thought of harming you today. If you could make love to me, you could have avoided today's calamity. This is what the heavens say. Your Highness, you are destined to encounter such a calamity. Her neck was grabbed by Qin Yu, and he could crush it with just a little bit of force. But she clearly wasn't worried at all. Instead, her eyes were filled with regret. A bit of blood, red, appeared in Yuqi's eyes. Then it rapidly spread out like ink. In the blink of an eye, her two black and white eyes had turned the color of pure blood. Your Highness, if you don't want to be a living saint monarch, then you can only be a dead puppet. But, Your Highness, please rest assured. Considering your honored status, I will act quickly. You won't feel too much pain. Qin Yu's figure was reflected in her blood-red eyes. His body tensed. Within his soul space, Mei Mei's eyes flashed open. I found her. A hand gripped her slender neck. Some invisible fluctuations instantly seeped into her body, causing the pitiful Yu Qi to stiffen. Yao Bin, what have you done? Qin Yu ignored her question. He lifted his other hand, and like an arrow, he slammed it between his eyebrows. Yu Qi screamed miserably. The blood red in her eyes rapidly faded. In several breaths of time, she returned to normal. Qin Yu's complexion became increasingly dignified. He slowly lifted his finger, and faint traces of blood red were constantly pulled out from between his eyebrows. Within his soul space, Mei Mei's face was pale. Between her eyebrows, there was a weariness that couldn't be concealed. When she froze by Xing Yuan's soul, she had consumed a great deal of energy. Now that she had forcefully attacked today, she had caused some damage. But at this time, Mei Mei's eyes were filled with anticipation. As she saw the faint traces of blood red appear, she immediately revealed a satisfied smile. Although she had suffered a bit, this sugar pill was large enough. It seemed that she would be able to eat another delicious meal today. More and more blood red appeared, condensing into a mass. The fierce face of a woman appeared from within. She seemed to realize that the current situation was far from good. With a sharp cry, she hurtled towards Qin Yu's soul. The purple moon above her head trembled. Faint traces of light fell down, weaving into a net that trapped that mass of blood-red light. The woman angrily screamed, but no matter how she attacked, she couldn't escape. The purple moon net tightened, dragging the mass of blood-red light in front of Mei Mei. The little girl giggled and said, "Thank you, big sister you. Then I won't be polite." As she spoke, she reached out a chubby hand and grabbed onto the mass of blood-red light. She didn't move at all, but the woman crazily struggled and screamed, as if she were withstanding a horrifying pain. Faint traces of blood red were constantly peeled off and submerged into Mei Mei's hand. She couldn't help but narrow her eyes, a look of enjoyment on her face. "Your Highness Saint Son, please spare me. I know many secrets of the Holy Palace." "As long as your Highness shows mercy, I am willing to offer everything to your Highness." This mass of blood-red light was Dame Chan's soul. She had forcefully occupied Yu Qi's mortal body and wanted to do unspeakable things. She never imagined that she would end up like this. At this time, there was no response to her pleas. Her screams became increasingly shrill. After a moment, when Mei Mei let go of her hand, the mass of blood-red light had been reduced to half its original size. The woman's face trembled as if it would collapse at any moment. Dame Chan relaxed a little. "Just now, She really thought that she would die. As long as she wasn't killed, she had a chance of living. She just needed Chinyu to give her a chance. Mei stuck out her tongue. Ah, I accidentally ate so much. Big sister, big brother, please don't blame me. I'll give the rest to you. I suddenly feel very tired, so I'm going to sleep first. These words didn't sound right. Dame Chan's eyes widened. But Purple Moon didn't give her a chance to speak. The net suddenly tightened, cutting her soul into countless pieces like sharp knives. Moonlight swept out and took away half of her soul. Then, a great blue sun phantom appeared and swallowed up the other half. In just a moment, the soul of this Dame Chan, who had struggled in the Holy Palace for 100,000 years, who had deep methods and great ambitions, had been cleanly divided up by the three evil guests within Chinyu's body. The secret art that she had successfully cultivated had actually vanished into thin air before it could even be used. Beneath the pavilion, Chinyu let out a long breath. With a thought, the medicinal efficacy in his body rapidly dissipated and his breathing returned to normal. Even so, as he looked at the unconscious Yuchi in his arms, he felt his throat go dry. After quickly inspecting her and making sure she wasn't in any danger, he carefully placed her on the ground and left. Without looking back, Chinyu lifted his hand and grasped the air. The golden seal howled towards him. With a flick of his sleeves, he wiped away the medicine on its surface. After sensing that there wasn't anything wrong with it, he took it. As soon as the golden seal entered his hand, a harmonious feeling rose from the depths of his heart. Chinyu's senses instantly spread out, covering the vast majority of the Holy Palace in the blink of an eye. He could see that in some dark palaces, there were women who were filled with death energy, but strangely, they still retained their last bit of vitality. As his senses continued to spread out, a familiar aura appeared. Chinyu's thoughts stirred, and the figure of the demon envoy appeared in front of him. He had an anxious expression. He paced back and forth in the palace, clearly worried about his current situation. What surprised Chinyu was that the demon envoy didn't even notice him peeping at him. That's not right. There's another aura. Chinyu was secretly surprised. This was because he discovered that not too far away from the palace where the demon envoy was, there was another powerful cultivator. Shua, the scene changed once more. A black-haired, white-bearded old man quietly sipping tea appeared. His eyebrows suddenly furrowed together, and he put down the teacup in his hands. With a light pop, it was like a stone being thrown into water, causing ripples to appear. The scene in front of him immediately blurred. Chinyu withdrew from this strange scene. He held the Saint Sun seal and frowned. Even someone as powerful as the demon envoy hadn't discovered his peeping. So, just who was this black-haired, white-bearded old man? As he was thinking, there was some movement behind him. Chinyu quickly turned around, and his eyes met Yuchi's. Finally, that familiar feeling returned. He smiled and asked with concern, "How do you feel?" Yuchi shook her head. She covered her chest with a hand. "I'm fine." The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Chinyu coughed and turned around. After a few rustling sounds, Yuchi said, "I'm fine." She changed into a long dress and pretended to be relaxed. "You're quite honest. I was worried just now that you little scoundrel would suddenly turn around and take advantage of this big sister." She would never tell Chinyu that she had clearly sensed everything that happened just now. As she thought about how she had wet herself in front of him and seduced him from behind, and how she had taken the initiative to offer herself to him, although she couldn't help it, her face still burned hot. It was just that she forced herself not to reveal it. Chinyu saw that she didn't feel any discomfort and relaxed. As he listened to her teasing tone, he couldn't help but smile. Of course, this young master's character is first class. In front of a beautiful woman, I have great self-control. Looking at Yuchi's pale face and thinking of her previous experiences, Chinyu felt a deep sense of guilt. Although he didn't know why she was in the Holy Palace, it was likely related to how she had rescued him. "Have you been well these past years?" These words caused Yuchi's eyes to turn red. The years she spent in the Holy Palace where she didn't see the light of day were memories she didn't want to recall again. Even so, she smiled and nodded. This was because Yu Qi was well aware that when Qin was a little cultivator who had just entered the land of divinity and demons, he was able to reach his current height in such a short period of time. His experiences definitely weren't any easier than hers. Chapter 558. Yu Qi was curious as to how Qin was able to determine her identity. This question caused a cold sweat to appear on Qin forehead, but he tried to play it off. No matter how many times Yu Qi asked him, he would always change the topic. Nonsense. Could it be that he had to tell Yu Qi that he had seen her wet body many years ago and had accidentally remembered it very clearly and had a deep impression of her perky breasts? That was simply courting death. He spent some time recounting his experiences over the years. Then, he raised his hand and drank the wine in his cup, his complexion a bit gloomy. Yu Qi naturally knew the reason. After a moment of silence, she said in a soft voice, "As you said, Ningling has an extremely high status in the immortal sect. Purple Moon has no ill intentions toward her, so there shouldn't be any problems." Qin bitterly smiled. "I inquired about the immortal sect from the demon envoy not long ago. Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace has a new palace master, but her name is Shun Yuanin. As for Ningling, there hasn't been any news of her for a long time, as if she never appeared at all." When Qin first learned of this, he wished he could immediately rush to the immortal sect. But he knew that doing so would only be courting death. Thus, he suppressed the worry in his heart and met with the powerhouses of the demonic path. This was because the sooner he truly grasped the authority of the demonic path, the more he would have the qualifications to stand opposite the immortal sect. Yu Qi comforted him. "Perhaps there was some accident. Didn't you say that you had the Dao Arena Master help you make a deduction? Ningling should be fine." Qin took a deep breath. "I hope so. All right, let's not talk about this. How did you come to the demonic path and enter the holy palace?" Yu Qi smiled. "After you ran away in the past, my days in the clan weren't too good. Do you remember the badge I showed you? It is something passed down from my mother's family and represents my status in the holy palace. Back then, when things became too big, the Yu family didn't dare to do anything to me. Because they thought I was an eyesore, they sent me to the demonic path. Because of this badge, I entered the holy palace." Her words were simple and light, but Qin could imagine what sort of situation she faced in the past. Yu Qi glanced at Qin guilty expression and lightly said, "It's all in the past. Moreover, you were brought to the land of divinity and demons by Big Sister. I certainly couldn't watch helplessly as they harmed you." Qin eyes revealed a cold intent. "Good and evil will always be repaid. Yu Qi, how do you want to deal with the Yu family?" The young cultivator from the land of exile that they had schemed against and hunted down in the past was now the holy son of the demonic path. Countless people had tried to join him and work for him. If he wanted to deal with a mere, small demonic path family clan, it would be a simple matter. Yu Qi's complexion was complex. There was resentment and hesitation. Finally, she sighed. "At the start, I really did hate them, but now I've thought things through. No matter what, it was the Yu family that raised me. I can only consider this as repaying their graciousness for raising me." Her eyes were apologetic. "Qin, I know this request is a bit excessive." Qin interrupted her with a smile. "I've made many enemies these past years, and most of them didn't have a good ending. I'll occasionally let a few go. Just think of it as me being noble and repaying evil with good. If it weren't for Yu Qi, Qin feared he would still be trapped in the land of exiles. In that desolate land, he would be like a frog in a well. How could he have experienced the magnificence of the land of divinity and demons, much less possess his current cultivation? If there were people in this world that Qin was truly grateful to, then Yu Qi would definitely be one of them." "Thank you," Yu Qi said in a soft voice. She looked at the familiar face across from her. His appearance was ordinary, but his eyes seemed like an endless sea of stars, able to contain all things in the world, let alone those people from a Yu family. Even she never imagined he would have his current achievements. In a trance, Yu Qi remembered that when she first met Qin, the two of them had been life or death enemies. Qin Yu waved a hand in front of his eyes. Are you entranced? How come I never discovered that my own charm was so great? As he spoke, he had a narcissistic expression on his face. Yu Qi regained her composure, a faint blush on her ears. She rolled her eyes and said, Little man, Big Sister has discovered that your skin has become quite good after all these years of cultivation. She stood up and walked out, taking this chance to calm down some of the fluctuations in her heart. Let's go. You are now the Holy Palace's Saint Son, so there are some people you must see. Qin Yu didn't sense anything. He smiled and followed her. His hands were crossed behind his back, and there was a sense of relaxation that he hadn't felt in a long time. Now that he saw Yu Qi, did that mean that everything was developing in a good direction? The doors to Ani-chan's palace slowly opened. Yu Qi looked at the empty body on the throne and slowly said, Although Auntie Chan harbored ill intentions towards me, if it weren't for her protection, I fear I wouldn't have lived to this day, much less be able to see you. If so, then I should be thanking her. Qin Yu looked at the body that had lost its soul and was filled with death energy, but strangely, there was still a trace of life left in it. He revealed a bit of surprise, but there was no pity in his eyes. You're lucky. Otherwise, do you think that this Ani-chan would feel any guilt in her heart? Yu Qi shook her head. Ani-chan and the others are all pitiful people. Because the Holy Palace was sealed away and they were trapped here, their aura fused together with the Holy Palace. Even if they wanted to die, it would be difficult. Now that her soul has perished, all of her gratitude and grudges have turned to nothing. In truth, I do feel some pity towards these people. Qin Yu frowned. Are you pleading for them? Yu Qi turned around. I just want to tell you that these women trapped in the Holy Palace aren't in the wrong. Even if they try to harm you? Yes. Qin Yu nodded. I understand what you mean. Let them in. Yu Qi smiled. She was gratified that the current Qin Yu still retained the kindness he had in the past and hadn't lost himself in his great strength. She clapped her hands. Outside the hall, the panic-stricken, pitiful women carefully entered the hall and respectfully knelt on the ground. Greetings, Your Highness, Saint Son. Strictly speaking, the Holy Palace had two masters. One was the Saint Sovereign, and the other was the Saint Son. Now, Qin Yu had the qualifications to control their life and death. The voices of these women were low and hoarse. Although they wore black robes, they still couldn't hide the thick smell of decay that came from their bodies. Looking at them kneeling on the ground, Qin Yu suddenly understood why Yu Qi was pleading for them. He made a decision in his heart. 100,000 years of imprisonment, struggling between life and death. This is what the entire demonic path owes you. I will give you the right to freely choose. Those who do not wish to continue suffering may scatter into the world. If you wish to continue living, the Holy Palace will provide you with puppet bodies. As his voice fell, the sound of weeping filled the hall, sharp and grating as they vented the repressed emotions in their hearts. They had waited 100,000 years for these words to finally arrive. They hadn't done anything wrong. They had only been innocently implicated. A woman pulled down her black robe, revealing a mummified face. Tears of blood flowed down from her empty eye sockets, falling between her withered flesh and blood. It was particularly dazzling. Your Highness, please bestow your grace so that we can be free from this mess as soon as possible. Black robes fell down one after another as they knelt on the ground. Qin Yu's eyes swept over each face. These women were ugly and fierce, but who knew that 100,000 years ago they had all been as beautiful as flowers? Now that they had fallen to such a state, just whose fault was it? And who could they find to complain to? To them, this world was a living purgatory. Perhaps only by dying, returning dust to dust, could they truly be freed. Yu Qi's eyes turned red. She met his gaze and gently nodded. Your Highness, please open the shackles on their bodies. Qin Yu took a deep breath. He stood up and took out the Saint Son's seal. Today, with my status as the Saint Son, I pardon you. From now on, you can live or die as you please, no longer bound by the Holy Palace. The golden seal trembled, and an invisible force instantly spread out. Faint traces of imprisoning strength began to disperse from their bodies. The ugly and fierce faces of the women revealed faint smiles. They bowed one last time, their bodies no longer moving. A gust of wind appeared out of thin air, blowing over their bodies. They were like sculptures that had been weathered for countless years, disintegrating into powder in the wind. In the blink of an eye, in this grand hall, besides a few people, there was only powder left. Yu suddenly felt his interest waning, as if an invisible weight had filled his heart. He waved his hand. The puppet bodies will soon be sent to the Holy Palace. After today, all of you must listen to Yuchi's orders. You may leave. Yes, Your Highness. Several women stood up. Beneath their black robes, their eyes were deep and profound. They paused on Yu for a moment before walking out of the grand hall with their heads lowered. Yuchi said in a soft voice, "Every time a new holy monarch appears, they will follow the old rules and fill up the harem. These women might be able to soak in the glory of the holy monarch, but entering the holy palace might not be what they want. Their lives are not in their control. Your Highness has given them the right to choose life and death. This is already the greatest respect for them. Even if they have already vanished from the world, I believe they will still feel a sense of gratitude towards Your Highness." Yu's heart grew heavier as he listened. He forced a smile. "There are no outsiders here, so how can I be so distant? There is no need for us to care about so-called status." Yuchi shook her head. "Your Highness is now the saint's son and is destined to inherit the throne of the holy monarch soon. Since I am staying in the holy palace, I must maintain my dignity. Otherwise, how can others treat you with respect?" Her eyes were calm and firm. "Your Highness, I hope that no matter what happens, you will always be like today. I hope that you can maintain a trace of kindness in your heart and not allow yourself to become a stranger because of a change in status, power, or cultivation." Seeing her solemn expression, Yu looked into her eyes and earnestly nodded. "There might be endless slaughter in the future, but I will hold to my bottom line. Yuchi, thank you. To be the master of strength and not to be controlled by strength, these words were destined to only be spoken by those close to him." Yuchi smiled and bowed. "Your Highness, you have obtained the Saint's Son seal. I ask that you leave the Holy Palace and welcome the demonic path's worship." She retreated into the shadows. "I will wait here for the day you become the Holy Monarch." Looking at the direction she left in, Yu suddenly said, "Yuchi, once I become the Holy Monarch, I will abolish the old rule of filling up the harem and allow them to choose for themselves." He didn't know whether or not she heard him, but after several breaths of time, there was no response. Yu suddenly smiled. Why bother saying so much? He could just speak about it in the future. He stood up and walked out. Chapter 559. Although the demonic past small world was called small, that was only relative to the land of divinity and demons. In truth, its territory was vast, comparable to a country. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for it to accommodate the increasing number of disciples that had multiplied over the course of hundreds of millions of years. The southeastern 9-foot mountain wasn't too tall or straight, but the forests were lush and beautiful. Many monster beasts lived here because there was a spirit vein beneath the mountain. Spirit veins were naturally formed by the heavens and earth. They were able to gather spiritual strength from all directions and were extremely beneficial to a cultivator's cultivation. The place they passed through could be called a paradise. It had to be said that the cultivation environment of the demonic path's small world was far from what the outside world could compare with. Although spirit veins were rare, they weren't too precious. If one spent some treasures to lay down 1 or 2 spirit-gathering array formations, they wouldn't be too far off. But no matter how thin a mosquito was, it was still meat. The greater the family, the more they had to understand how to save resources. If they could obtain this 9-foot mountain, then some of their disciples would have a place to go. Fong Chongling pointed a finger on the map and turned. Have you found out who this land belongs to? Although the Fong family was a newly established noble family, there were several capable individuals that had appeared in the family. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Fong family would flourish in the near future, so they placed great importance on their daily interactions. This allowed the Fong family to quickly gain a foothold in the Holy Land. In their daily actions, they gained the aura of a noble family. If it weren't for the fact that the masters of this land had extremely high statuses, they would have already sent someone to pay a visit. There was no need to be so cautious. The steward walked out and respectfully bowed. "Reporting to Sir, we have already investigated. 9-Foot Mountain, as well as the several spirit ponds behind it, are all properties of Xianyang City's Ning family. Some years ago, the Ning family left the Holy Land, and their properties were entrusted to a relative to manage. They returned not long ago and are now gradually gathering everything together." Fang Chongling frowned. Xianyang City's Ning family? He carefully thought about it, but couldn't find any clues. The steward tactfully said, "It's not strange that Sir doesn't know of the Ning family. They were famous in the past, and there was a fierce character that appeared in their family. Thus they were granted the title of a noble family. Unfortunately, that person later became entangled with the immortal sect, and his fate wasn't too good. The Ning family also declined. Because there were a few enemies in the Holy Land, they were worried that they would be schemed against, so they moved out of the Holy Land. But for some reason, the Ning family recently moved back." Fang Chongling was suddenly enlightened. So it was that family that had caused such an uproar in the past. As long as one had some qualifications in the demonic path, they would know a thing or two. A declining aristocratic family was nothing in the sacred ground. Fang Chongling originally only thought of the 9 Peaks Mountain, but now he had other plans. However, no matter how much they had declined, they still carried the name of an aristocratic family. It would not be good to casually bully them. They had to find a proper reason to avoid trouble in the future. As a trusted aide, the steward had been by his master's side for many years. He naturally knew his master's character and temperament. Without batting an eyelid, he said, "A few years ago, the Huang family from the Chilean mountains came to us. These years, they have been very respectful. They will show their filial piety on every festive day. I heard that they have been in some trouble recently. It is said that they suffered a loss when they fought with the nearby Shi family." Fang Chongling rolled his eyes. "Don't beat around the bush when you're talking to me. Hurry up and explain the Tao here." The steward slapped his mouth. "It is my fault. Please don't be angry. I had someone investigate and found that the reason the Huang family suffered a loss was because the Shi family found a backer. They said it was some aristocratic family that had returned to their fiefdom." Fang Chongling's eyes brightened. "The Ning family. Hee, this is like sending a pillow when you're sleepy. It's the director's fault." He lightly coughed and pointed to a location in Xianyang City. "For better or worse, our Fang family is a great and honorable family. Since we have received the filial piety, we naturally cannot disappoint our subordinates. Send a message to the Huang family and tell them that they don't need to be afraid. They have a master backing them." As the Fang family was planning to eat a large piece of fat meat, Qin Yu and the demon envoy also mentioned the matter of fiefdom. "Your Highness has already obtained the recognition of the entire demonic path. According to the rules, before you succeed the position of Holy Monarch, it would not be good for you to stay in the Holy Palace. The matter of fiefdom needs to be settled as soon as possible." The demon envoy smiled. With a flick of his sleeves, a map appeared in front of him. "I have chosen several fiefdoms for your Highness. Let's see if there are any that suit you." Concerning the matter of fiefdom, the two had already discussed it several times. Qin Yu wasn't unfamiliar with the markings on the map. He knew that the fiefdoms that the demon envoy had chosen were all top fiefdoms. Not only were the environments good, but they were also rich in resources. Moreover, within the fiefdom were several famous aristocratic families of the demonic path. If one thought about it carefully, they would all be his future subordinates. "Here then." Qin Yu smiled and pointed at a spot. The demon envoy nodded. "Your Highness has chosen well. Although this place isn't the largest, overall it is the most suitable for you." He paused for a moment and said, "Your Highness will be going to your fiefdom, so you will need a decent guard of honor. There will also be personal guards and so on. Do you want to select people from the true demon guard? Qin Yu shook his head. I'm the commander of the Holy Nether Guard. There is no reason for me to select people from the true demon guard. The demon envoy understood what he was thinking. With your highness's status, although you cannot lift the ban on the endless sea, it isn't too excessive for you to bring some people out. I will immediately arrange this. Once everything is settled in 2 days, your highness may make a trip. Then I'll have to trouble Lord Demon Envoy. Qin Yu cupped his hands together and watched as the demon envoy left. After the demon envoy left the grand hall, his eyes flashed. Just who was that mysterious old man hiding in this grand hall? Because of his concerns, Qin Yu didn't mention this to the demon envoy after leaving the Holy Palace. But he still had some thoughts in his heart. The demon envoy ordered people to handle the matters of the endless sea. After sending away his attendants, he stepped into the grand hall and bowed. Teacher, from what I can see, your highness seems to be someone who remembers old friendships. The previous demon envoy sat motionless, his expression unfathomable. The demon envoy nodded. Indeed, this disciple has clearly investigated by Xing Yuan's matter. It was indeed because of 2 old servants. There is no other problem. The previous demon envoy picked up a teacup. Even so, we cannot be careless. I still cannot completely relax about your highness's status. The demon envoy hesitated. Then teacher means that the trip to the demon world, the previous demon envoy said, first make preparations. Once we determine that there is nothing wrong, we will immediately leave. This disciple understands. Cloud Cluster City, Mu family residence. Although there was no change on the outside, the entire residence was gone. The dignified and noble atmosphere from before was now shrouded in a layer of panic. A new saint's son had appeared, but he wasn't a member of the Mu family. Everyone in the Mu family was well aware of what this meant. Without accident, these days would soon come to an end. At that time, no one dared to imagine what would happen. In the underground palace, Mu Yunli was expressionless. He tightly grasped a jade talisman in his hands. It won't be easy to succeed the position of Saint Monarch. The Mu family still has a chance to fight, but once he took this step, he could no longer turn back. Mu Yunli fiercely struggled within his body. Finally, he let out a long sigh. The only thing left in his eyes was a ruthless and fierce light. It was these people that didn't give the Mu family a path to survival. As a large family, they couldn't just stretch out their necks and allow themselves to be trampled upon. Big brother, perhaps I was wrong, but I have no choice. I have no choice. Chapter 560. There was no obvious change of seasons in the small world of the Holy Land. However, Liang Shou felt chilled and his face paled as he bathed in the warm sunlight. Lan, why are you so distant from me? What happened after all these days? The joy of leaving the endless sea had disappeared. Hai Lamlin's eyes showed that she couldn't bear it. She understood Liang Shou Yi's feelings, and she was touched. However, she couldn't force him. Because the Liang family had taken care of her for many years, there were some things she couldn't say clearly. However, she couldn't delay it anymore. Otherwise, it would be a mistake for both of them. Liang Ji, I've always respected you. I consider you my brother. I don't have any other feelings. I hope you can respect yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, Hai Lan bowed and left. Watching her leave, Liang Shou Yi's body shook, and he almost fell on the ground. It shouldn't be like this. In the endless sea, he and Lan had always been close. They were known as a perfect couple. How could they become like this in such a short time? Holding the stone railing, Liang Shou felt his body was weak. He didn't want to lose face in front of others, so he walked a few steps to lie down on the side of the road. He closed his eyes and didn't want to get up again. His mind was filled with Hai Lamlin's figure. After an unknown period of time, Liang Shou suddenly had a thought. Perhaps the woman he had sworn to protect for the rest of his life would never come back. Thinking of this, he was so sad. He felt like his entire body was pierced by an arrow. He couldn't even breathe. It was not until a few conversations entered his ears that Liang Shui suddenly came back to life. Big sister, can you tell? Although Ms. Hai appears cold on the surface, she cares a lot about our holy son. Shut up. This kind of thing is not something we can talk about. She looked around and sighed in relief when she saw no one else. The younger one stuck out her tongue. It's not me. Everybody knows this. But it's normal. His Highness is such an outstanding character. Who doesn't like him? You're getting more and more presumptuous. If you keep talking like this, I will report to the steward tomorrow and ask him to kick you out. I know I was wrong. Please be magnanimous. Please don't. Sitting up in the bushes, Liang Shou continued to stare at the two maids as they walked away. His breathing gradually deepened and his hands were clenched into fists. His nails dug into his flesh, but he didn't feel any pain. He had grown up with Hai Lan Lan and knew her very well. How could a cold and proud person like her fall for Yao Bin in such a short time? Moreover, when she was in the endless sea, everybody knew that she disdained and hated Yao Bin. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yao Bin must have used his current identity to do something to Hai Lan Lan. That's why she's so cold today. Yes, Hai Lan Lan's distancing herself from him was not because she was heartless, but because she was protecting him. Some people were like this. When they saw a sliver of hope in their despair, they would grab it tightly and magnify it until it filled their entire minds, not caring if it was their own wishful thinking or not. Liang Shou had fallen into this trap. As he thought of what Yao Bin might have done to Hai Lan Lan, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Hai Lan Lan was a flower that he had cherished since she was a child. He wished he could hold her in his hands and protect her. How could he? Drops of blood dripped down from his fingers, smashing into the ground. After Hai Lan Lan left, she felt a bit restless. Liang Shou had a stubborn personality, so it was best if he didn't stir up any trouble. After not returning for a long time, she called over several people and had them go to the back garden to take a look, lest something happened. When these people arrived, they happened to see Liang Shou staring at the two maids in a daze. They couldn't help but tease him. Liang Shou squeezed out a smile. When he learned from them that it was Hai Lan Lan who had asked them to come, he felt a bit warm in his heart and a bit sour. He was even more certain of his guess. Hai Lan Lan had him in her heart. Yao Bin. His Highness the Saint Sun left for his sealed land. The holy Nethergar that had vanished for 100,000 years appeared once more in the eyes of everyone in the demonic path. 1,000 of them wore blood-red armor and held sabers and spears in their hands. Their momentum was awe-inspiring, and wherever they passed, slaughter, energy, soared into the heavens. Those who were secretly watching were startled, as if they had awakened their dusty memories. Although the Holy Netherguard didn't have any tribulation of mortals, they were known as the #1 legion of the demonic path. Looking at the entire land of divinity and demons, besides the immortal sect's Iron Cross army, there was no other legion that could contend with them. The prestige of the Saint Sun had already spread to all sides of the demonic path, and now with the support of the Holy Netherguard, he was even more awe-inspiring. Wherever the squad stopped, countless demonic path influences sent people to greet them, offering generous gifts. Because he hadn't been able to find a suitable person to manage internal affairs, Shang Yuntai recommended himself. Qingyu considered it for a moment and then nodded. Thus, the task of receiving gift from all sides fell to him. Although he had enjoyed some glory in his early years and had seen some scenes, Shang Yuntai was still stunned by the generosity of all sides. He looked down at the 3 large spatial rings on his finger and earnestly thought about it. He decided that he wouldn't take half a step out of the speed car until he reached his sealed land. Everyone loved wealth. Although no one dared to take such a risk, it was best not to use the life he had fought for with great difficulty to test the hearts of others. Besides the Holy Netherguard, there were also 2,000 true demon guards. They were led by Tuba and Tutu and were scattered on the 2 flanks of the squad. They were arranged by the demon attendants. The sealed land had just been established, and there were many things to do, so there was a great shortage of manpower. Qingyu didn't decline. Duan Sen-er and a group of servants sat together in the two-winged speed car, looking at the fluttering banners outside the window. He looked back at his little sister, who was still silent, but her eyes were a bit brighter. He said in a soft voice, "Although we've suffered some hardships, we siblings never imagined we would have today's glory. Master is someone who values friendship and loyalty. In the future, he won't treat us unfairly. Little sister needs to recuperate from your wounds as soon as possible. Big brother cannot shoulder this burden by himself, so you must share some of it with me." Duan Jiu lifted a hand and traced her face. Those ugly scars had already healed, but the scars in her heart still needed time to heal. But what her big brother said was right. She wouldn't suffer these hardships in vain. Moreover, the person who had tortured her had already died under her master's hands. Thinking of this, the knot in her heart dispersed a bit, and her thoughts became increasingly lively. Although her big brother was comforting her, he likely also had the intention of giving her some pointers. Master was now His Highness the Saint's son, a pivotal figure within the demonic path. There were countless people that wished to join him and obtain his approval. If the two of them couldn't grasp this opportunity, they feared it wouldn't be long before they were pushed aside. It wasn't that their master was indifferent, but that a great figure like him didn't have the time to worry about such trivial matters. Big brother, rest assured that little sister is fine. From now on, we must work hard to repay Master's graciousness. Seeing his little sister regain her vigor, Duan San couldn't help but smile. The ones holding the flags in front were the outstanding figures of the Holy Netherguard. Wang Chao, Yellow Mountain, and Hua Yanting were all in high spirits. Although they knew that there would be a day when they would be able to turn things around, they didn't expect it would come so soon. Because of their status as guard captains, every time they stopped, there were many great figures that disregarded their status and treated the three of them with great courtesy. Before they left, they even left with generous intentions. Although they constantly warned themselves that they had to maintain their composure and not lose their status, the grins that stretched from ear to ear were enough to show just how excited they were. It was just that the three of them were well aware that the reason they could have their current glory was all because of His Highness the Saint's son's honor. Naturally, they were even more loyal to him. If someone tried to harm His Highness, then even if that person was at the calamity immortal realm, the three of them might still rush forwards and bite them a few times. Within the giant speed car, Qin Yu leaned back in his soft seat, his eyes closed in meditation. Although he seemed calm and composed, the truth was that his back was tense. Hai Lan Lan sat across from him. Although her expression was light and there was a bit of coldness in her eyes, when she occasionally glanced at him, it caused Qin Yu's heart to skip a beat. Luckily, Hai Lan Lan was a very proud woman. Even if she had some thoughts in her heart, she wouldn't do anything. Thus, Qin Yu was able to sit still until now. He secretly thought that once he reached his land, he would have to find a reason to have Hai Lan Lan return to the Holy Netherguard. Having her follow him around all day really made him uncomfortable. "Your Highness, what are you thinking about?" Qin Yu's back tightened. He suddenly felt a bit guilty. He coughed and opened his eyes. "Although I am the commander of the Holy Netherguard, I still need to have someone I trust lead my personal guard. Tuba and Tutu have gone to the True Demon Guard and won't be able to leave for some time. As for Wang Chao and the others, their status isn't high enough." Hai Lanlan's eyes were clear. "I'll go." Her eyes were calm, without any impurities. But this caused Qin Yu to feel even more embarrassed. He always felt that he was a fickle and ungrateful person. Just what was going on here? If Hai Lan Lan was willing to leave on her own initiative, then that was naturally for the best. Qin Yu quickly nodded and finalized this matter. Although he felt a bit uncomfortable as he thought about how they would gradually drift apart in the future, he relaxed. Reality proved that Shang Yuntai's worries were unnecessary. The group passed through without any hindrance. They didn't encounter any trouble as they entered their land. But as the demonic path Saint's son, the scope of his land was astonishing. After walking for several days, they arrived at the Saint Sun's palace in East Sun City. Because of the demon envoy's arrangements, everything had been prepared. Everything proceeded in an orderly manner without any problems. Qin Yu summoned the representatives of the various families in East Sun City who had been waiting for many days and received the gifts they had prepared. They were all people with good eyesight and knew that His Highness had many matters to attend to. They didn't stay for long before they all excused themselves. After leaving the Holy Palace, they all let out sighs of relief. Looking at it now, His Highness the Saint's son didn't seem like a harsh person. Their days would be a bit better. But as they thought about how there was a mountain on top of them, the joy that had just appeared in their hearts immediately faded away. From today onwards, the days of being able to freely do as they pleased were gone forever. The best result for everyone was to tuck their tails between their legs and behave. They glanced at each other and sighed. Then they all left. But when they turned around, their expressions were different. Although there was now a mountain on top of them, if they could curry favor with him, this mountain that made it hard for them to breathe could become their backer. This was His Highness the Saint's son, a great figure that stood above the highest heavens. Once he inherited the throne in the future, he would be the most respected existence within the demonic path. Even within the entire land of divinity and demons, he could play chess with him. If he had such a backer, why would he worry about not being able to flourish in the future? After seeing the great families of East Sun City, before Qin Yu could catch his breath, he saw a nervous Shang Yuntai hiding behind layers of guards. "Greetings, Your Highness. These are the gifts that we received along the way. The detailed list is in a jade slip. This subordinate has already calculated everything. Please accept it." It wasn't until the storage ring was taken away that Shang Yuntai let out a long breath of relief. His face relaxed, but there was also a bit of exhaustion that he couldn't hide. These past days had truly been a kind of torment for him. Qin Yu was a bit curious. Shang Yuntai's temperament had been tempered by the terror of life or death, yet he still looked like this. Were the gifts really so amazing? Qin Yu sent his divine sense into the jade slip. After a long period of silence, he nodded. "Understand. Go and rest." After Shang Yuntai and the others left for a long time, Qin Yu finally regained his composure. As he thought about his own performance, his face heated up. It had to be said that he was someone who had seen the world. When he borrowed a pre-celestial tree from Four Seasons City, he had extorted 10 billion spirit stones from the immortal sect. It could be said that he was rich. But the summary on the list of gifts was that just the spirit stones alone surpassed 100 billion. Not to mention the many precious treasures that made up the bulk of all the gifts. Roughly calculating, Qin Yu had obtained at least hundreds of billions of spirit stones along the way. Even though his will was as firm as a boulder, he still felt a bit dazed. It was no wonder Shang Yuntai was so tired. Even as Qin Yu looked at the list of gifts and then at the large storage ring on the table, he still felt unsafe. After a long time, Qin Yu let out a long breath. He bitterly smiled and shook his head. In the end, he had suddenly ascended to a high position, but his temperament were still lacking. It had to be known that he was now the Holy Palace's saint's son. Without accident, he would inherit the throne of the Holy Monarch. At that time, looking at the entire land of divinity and demons, there would only be a handful of people that could compare with him. To say that with a flip of his hand, he could decide the life and death of 1 trillion people with just a thought wasn't a lie. It didn't matter how many possessions he had. If he wasn't the Holy Son, then even if he had his current cultivation, he still wouldn't be considered remarkable in the demonic path. Who would even bother to look at him? He needed to clearly understand what was most important right now. Qin Yu's mind was completely calm. It was just that if he wanted to raise his emperor-level demon body to the saint level, it wasn't something that could be achieved through cultivation. As for the demon blood of a calamity immortal, it was impossible for him to obtain it. Perhaps he should find a chance to mention this matter to the demon envoy and see if he had any way. While he couldn't improve his demon body for the time being, he couldn't stop cultivating in other aspects. Otherwise, even if he became a holy monarch, he wouldn't be able to obtain the complete authority of a holy monarch without a corresponding cultivation. His cultivation of the path of water was gradually entering a better state. He didn't need to spend too much time on it. But besides that, there was another aspect that could dramatically increase his strength. That was the monster-raising mystic art. After the purple-back blue-wing ants completed their first transformation, they would come to a halt. With his current status, it would be much simpler to raise them again. Once they completed their second transformation, Qin Yu's strength would rise to a whole new level. If they completed their third transformation, he would be able to roll over ordinary calamity immortals. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. As he was thinking about how to raise the purple-back blue-wing ants, a guest arrived outside the Holy Palace. After he revealed his status, several true demon guards standing guard outside the palace, their auras cold and their eyes filled with disdain, hurriedly bowed, their voices filled with respect. The visitor lightly said, "I'll have to trouble you to pass a message. I request an audience with your Highness the Holy Sun." Several true demon guards hurriedly said, "Please wait a moment. I will immediately pass on the message." A person turned and hurried away. A moment later, Qin Yu saw this uninvited guest in the main hall. He smiled and said, "I thought that you would come here when I was in the Holy Palace, but I didn't see you. Now that you've come, don't you think it's a bit troublesome?" Zhao Qinyuan shook his head. "There are too many people in the Holy Palace. This isn't a good place to talk." He looked around and said, "I came today because I have something to say to your Highness. How about we change places?" Qin Yu's eyes flashed. "Since Brother Zhao has spoken, there is no reason not to. Please follow me." He stood up and led the way. The two of them left the main hall and arrived at Qin Yu's training area. After ordering that no one was to disturb him, they flicked their sleeves and closed the doors. "It's very quiet here. If Brother Zhao has something to say, please speak." Zhao Qinyuan shook his head. "It's not enough." He took out a walnut-like seed and flicked his finger. The seed fell to the ground and took root. Vines and leaves rapidly grew outwards, covering the entire hall in just several breaths of time. Qin Yu's complexion was dignified. He didn't know what this vine was, but it was able to completely isolate him from his senses and prevent him from leaving the hall. "Enough." Zhao Qinyuan looked up. His tone suddenly changed. "Your Highness, are you not worried that I have ill intentions and will try to harm you?" Qin Yu shook his head. If Brother Zhao wanted to deal with me, he could have done so directly. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Zhao Qinyuan was silent for a moment. He shook his head and said, "I didn't know that your Highness had such trust in me." There was a bit more gratification in his tone. His expression turned solemn. "What I have to say today might make your Highness unhappy, but I ask that your Highness patiently listen to me, lest you provoke a great deal of trouble in the future." Qin Yu slowly nodded. Zhao Qinyuan directly said, "When you broke through the endless sea, that final pillar of light that fell from the heavens, your Highness borrowed an external strength. But does your Highness know that this external strength is actually a great hidden danger to you?" Qin Yu's eyes instantly turned sharp. Zhao Qinyuan said, "It seems that your Highness has already sensed something. That is for the best. There is no need for me to say anything more." "No," Qin Yu said in a low voice. "I asked Brother Zhao to tell me what this hidden danger is." Zhao Qinyuan smiled. "Your Highness, please rest assured. Since I came here today, I naturally won't leave half the story unsaid." He lifted a hand and pointed in front of him. Ripples appeared in the void, and strange syllables sounded out, penetrating into the depths of his soul. Although Qin Yu didn't understand these syllables, he wasn't a stranger to them. He slowly said, "So Brother Zhao is the same as me, having a similar lucky chance." Zhao Qinyuan drew back his hand. The ripples in the void scattered, and the syllables vanished along with them. His voice carried with it the vicissitudes of time. A long, long time ago, a time that could be called ancient times, was the best time for cultivation. Incomparably powerful existences were born in the world, each one possessing the power to destroy the heavens and earth. If we were to describe them from the point of view of our time, they could be called divine gods. In theory, divine gods can live forever, but the truth is that they will still perish. Some divine gods who were unwilling to die stepped onto the road of reversing the heavenly Tao and violated a taboo. Because of this, they caused a great calamity that caused the heavens and earth to collapse and nearly all divine gods to perish. But the strength of divine gods was far too formidable. Even though they died, their incomplete wills still remained. Or, to be more direct, their incomplete divine sparks remained. Over the endless years, the vast majority of divine sparks were thoroughly annihilated. Only a small number of lucky or formidable divine sparks were able to survive. If later generations of cultivators were to obtain them and fuse them into their bodies, they would be able to obtain the strength of an incomplete divine spark. Zhao Qinyuan's eyes were deep and profound. He looked straight at Qinyu. It must be known that even an incomplete divine spark still possesses a terrifying might. The hall fell silent. It was only after a long time that Qinyu's voice broke the silence. I obtained a divine spark? Zhao Qinyuan nodded. He said without expression, although divine gods die, as long as their divine spark doesn't scatter and they find suitable soil, they can be reborn. Chapter 561/P. Zhao Qinyuan pointed at his chest, and then at Qinyu. His tone was resolute and decisive. You and I are the soil. Before Qinyu could regain his composure, his soul space had already exploded with noise. Mimi was the first to jump out, her eyes shining. Divine sparks. There's actually a divine sparks. The purple moon shined with a brilliant light. A rich and pure deep purple moonlight illuminated the entire soul space. At almost the same time, the blue sun phantom arrived. As the two lights collided, they emitted intermittent syllables. Eat it. We must eat it. Mimi nodded again and again, her face twitching with excitement. Big Sister Moon, Big Brother Sun, what you said is right. If we don't take the will of the heavens, we will be harmed instead. We cannot allow this great good fortune to escape from our hands. She looked up, her eyes ruthlessly glaring at Qinyu's soul. You must activate the divine sparks. Otherwise, if I cause trouble with you every day, I won't be able to have a day of peace. Qinyu was well aware of their reactions. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his complexion became strange. It was fine if it was Mimi, but what was going on with the purple moon and blue sun? The first time they spoke was actually because of something so absurd. And most importantly, if it was as they said, then the situation would be reversed. He really wasn't prepared at all. Should he continue to be afraid? Or should he be secretly delighted? Zhao Qinyuan's eyes flashed with surprise. Whether Qinyu was worried or not, he had been prepared, so why did he have such an expression now? Unable to see through his thoughts, Zhao Qinyuan thought for a moment. Then, he said, Your Highness cannot be careless. In the future, it is best if you don't use the power of the divine sparks again. Otherwise, your fusion with it will gradually deepen. Once you meet the conditions for awakening, things will become troublesome. Within his soul space, Qinyu asked again and again. After receiving confirmation from them, his mind shook. Just what sort of background did these three evil guests have? They were confident in killing a god, and they even had excited expressions on their faces. Hearing Zhao Qinyuan's words, he hesitated for a moment. Brother Zhao's meaning is that as long as I constantly galvanize the power of the divine sparks, I can accelerate its awakening, right? Zhao Qinyuan nodded. But why did he feel that something was wrong? He looked at Qinyu's face and saw some subtle expressions. His eyes widened. Your Highness, you aren't thinking of actively activating your godhood, are you? Qinyu waved his hand. Of course not. Although I have a bit of cultivation to contend with an ancient divine spirit, isn't that the same as seeking death? He sighed inwardly. He feared that after this, he really would have to seek death. However, Qinyu had already made up his mind that he would have to seriously negotiate with these three unwelcome guests before making any moves. Zhao Qinyuan couldn't see anything. He earnestly said, Your Highness, you absolutely must not try this. Otherwise, you will regret it in the future. Qinyu nodded. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Zhao. I will pay more attention. Seeing that he had taken the initiative to tell her this, she felt a bit of warmth in her heart. She didn't want to continue running her mouth full of lies, so she changed the topic. In a few days, I will be inviting everyone to a banquet. If Brother Zhao is free, why don't you stay here for a few days? Zhao Qinyuan said, even if your highness wants me to leave, I will still thicken my face and stay behind. The reason I came to remind your highness about the matter of divine sparks is because I hope to use this opportunity to obtain a favor from your highness. Qinyu respectfully said, Brother Zhao, please speak. Zhao Qinyuan smiled. It isn't difficult for your highness. Because of my cultivation, I need to find several 9-mark blood lotuses. Although they aren't considered precious because they're difficult to grow, there are far too few that can produce 9-mark blood lotuses. In addition, 9-mark blood lotuses have the effect of extending one's lifespan, so it is difficult to find them on the market. Qinyu's thoughts raced. Does Brother Zhao want to spread the news? Zhao Qinyuan clapped his hands. That's right. With your highness's status, as long as you spread the word that you need blood lotuses, there will definitely be people who will send them over. He revealed a bit of awkwardness. It's just that the blood lotuses are too urgent for me, so I can't search for them slowly. I ask that your highness doesn't take offense at my lack of manners. Qinyu waved his hand. Brother Zhao, there is no need to be like this. Compared to your reminder, it is nothing more than a slight effort. I will immediately pass down the order. I hope there will be some harvests. Speaking to here, Zhao Qinyuan's words reminded Qinyu that in order to raise the purple-back blue-wing ants, he needed a massive amount of high-level monster bee souls and blood. Although with his current status, it wouldn't be too troublesome to collect them, it would still take some time. He might as well directly spread the news like he did with the blood lotuses. After ordering people to carefully arrange arrangements for Zhao Qinyuan, Qinyu summoned Hailanlan. Although he wanted to distance himself from her on the way here, he couldn't find anyone suitable for the time being, so he could only delay her for a bit. After giving some instructions, Hailanlan nodded in understanding. After asking for several matters, she bowed and bid her farewells. Soon, news began to spread out through various channels. Although there were many different ways of saying it, the general meaning was the same. Because of certain reasons, your highness needs a batch of high-level monster bee souls and blood, as well as aged 9-mark blood lotuses. It was unknown how many people were eagerly looking at the same palace. After they obtained this news, they were overjoyed and quickly ordered people to prepare. High-level monster bee souls and blood were precious. What was expensive about it? They would buy them all. 9-mark blood lotuses were difficult to find. If they couldn't find any blood lotuses, they would bring their heads down. For a time, the entire demonic path was in an uproar. Because there were too few 9-mark blood lotuses, it wasn't obvious. But the price of high-level monster bee souls and blood actually increased by several times. Black Demon Sect. When the demonic path entered, great changes had occurred. Not to mention His Highness the Saint's son, but even a calamity immortal realm spy had been caught. The one who was the most shocked of all was Tai Qianqiu. Although he admitted that he had underestimated Yao Bin these past years, he never imagined that Yao Bin would have such great achievements today. During the demon body talent test, he had triggered the phenomenon of 10 suns in the sky. Afterwards, he had broken through the endless sea and obtained the inheritance of the Saint Palace in a single go, becoming the revered Saint Son of the Saint Palace. Now, as long as one wasn't blind, they could clearly see that Yao Bin was destined to inherit the throne. At that time, he would truly be a fish that leapt through the dragon gate and soared into the highest heavens. Every time Tai Qianqiu thought of this, he would sigh with emotion. At the same time, he also rejoiced in his heart. Luckily, he had gotten along with Yao Bin in the past. Even if he had offended him, Yao Bin had still saved his life in the past, so there shouldn't be any grudges between them. However, Tai Qianqiu also suppressed a bit of surprise in his heart. That was Yao Bin's identity. In the past, he had already sensed that something was wrong. However, he didn't have any evidence, and he also had a favor to ask at the time, so he didn't pursue the matter any further. However, Tai Qianqiu only thought about this matter for a moment. Several days ago, rumors had spread through the sect, and he had ordered people to ruthlessly deal with several gossipers. Now, no one dared to mention it, whether it was Yao Bin's current status or the importance that the Saint Palace placed on the inheritance. It wasn't something that he had the qualifications to meddle in. There would naturally be people that would investigate this matter. But now, Yao Bin was recklessly collecting the souls and blood of high-level monster beasts. As he thought of the monster beast that the sect was secretly raising, Tai Qianqiu's complexion darkened. The monster-raising mystic art was the greatest secret of the Black Demon sect. There were only a few people that had the qualifications to know of it. Was Yao Bin's actions a coincidence? Or was there another reason? Tai Qianqiu's complexion darkened. The demon envoy was expressionless. It was impossible to see whether he was happy or angry. He lightly said, "The matter that I asked you to investigate, is there any news?" There was a person kneeling in the hall. He wore a green robe and had an ordinary appearance. However, his actions were clean and neat. He bowed respectfully when he heard this. "Reply, my lord, I have just received the latest news. I have some clues regarding that person's identity." As he spoke, he handed over a jade slip with both hands. The demon envoy probed it with his divine sense. He frowned, and the air seemed as if it would freeze for an instant. After a long time, he laid down the jade slip and slowly said, "Has the information inside been confirmed?" The person's tone didn't change. "My lord knows the rules. All information must be confirmed by at least 3 parties before it is sent over." He paused for a moment. "May I ask, my lord, should we continue investigating?" The demon envoy said in a low voice, "Investigate." The person kneeling in the hall nodded. Without any movement, his figure rapidly faded away until he vanished from sight. Ha! The jade slip shattered into powder. The demon envoy's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. "Yao Bin, just who are you?" Fang Chongling frowned, his face gloomy. "Have you investigated clearly? Is the Ning family really preparing a gift?" The steward respectfully said, "My lord, it is indeed so." "Humph!" Fang Chongling slapped the table. "It looks like this Ning family has decided to fight us to the end. They would rather kneel down and be a dog at the Saint Sun's feet than be bitten by me." The steward thought for a moment. "My lord, there is no need to be angry. In truth, in my opinion, the Ning family has taken this step quite wisely." Fang Chongling's eyes were cold. "What do you want to say? Do you think I'm stupid?" The steward hurriedly knelt down. "Even if I had the courage of a dog, I would never dare to laugh at my master." Fang Chongling's complexion brightened. He humphed, "Stop pretending. If you have something to say, then hurry up and say it." The steward smiled. The Ning family has declined in the end. Although they still have the reputation of an aristocratic family, they don't even have someone to support them, who would place them in their eyes. Those Ning family relatives who are unwilling to return their properties are the best proof of this. My lord, think about it. How many eyes are looking at the Ning family, this fat piece of meat? The reason they haven't acted yet is because they are looking for a safe place. Once everyone determines the depths of the Ning family, I fear that in the blink of an eye, the Ning family will face imminent disaster. If that's the case, then, so what if we become His Highness Saint's dog? My lord, don't forget that His Highness Saint's position is now stable. It is only a matter of time before he succeeds as the Saint Monarch. Once he succeeds, he will be a character from the highest heavens. At that time, it won't be an exaggeration to say that even chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Perhaps the Ning family will be able to make a comeback and even restore their former glory. Fang Chongling furrowed his eyebrows. He thought about it carefully. If the steward said this was possible, then his complexion darkened. If the Ning family was able to make a comeback, would the Fang family be any better off? The steward observed his expression. My lord, in truth, if the Ning family can do it, our Fang family can also do it. If the Fang family also expresses our intentions, do you think His Highness Saint will accept us or the Ning family in name? Fang Chongling hesitated for a long time. That's right, but we are under elderly. If we change sides without permission, I fear there will be trouble, the steward said. My lord, why don't you think about it from another angle? If we can gain His Highness Saint's favor, then Elderly will have a chance to come into contact with His Highness. Perhaps he will even remember us in his heart. Fong Changling's expression changed several times before he finally nodded. Okay, let's do it this way. Immediately prepare a generous gift. After the steward left, Fong Chongling returned to his room and discussed it with the other leaders of the Fong family. Once everyone agreed, the matter was settled. Fong Chongling was full of confidence. He sneered, "Old dog Ning, I'll let you be proud for a few days. When we meet again in Eastern Sun City, you will cry." The Ning family and the Fong family, one was in decline, while the other was thriving. Was there a need to say more about how His Highness Saint would choose? Chapter 562/P Xinyang City, Ning Family. No matter how desolate they were, they still retained their status as an aristocratic family. The Ning family's large mansion had an extraordinary aura, and because it had just been refurbished, it looked particularly dignified. But the front entrance was completely deserted, revealing a bit of a dejected atmosphere. When someone passed by the main entrance, they would lower their head and speed up their pace, as if they would be tainted by some terrible misfortune if they were even a bit slower. Several speed cars stopped outside the main entrance. Ning Yuntao gloomily got off. He looked around and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Then he quickly walked in. When the Ning family first returned to the Holy Land, the courtyard had been lively for several days. But after they probed out the Ning family's current background, the excitement quickly faded away. Ning Rufeng was waiting in the study. Ning Yuntao ignored his exhaustion and hurried over to see him. When he walked in and stood in front of him, he revealed a look of shame. Although he had already expected this, Ning Rufeng couldn't help but feel disappointed upon seeing him like this. Then an icy chill drilled into his bones. When the Ning family was flourishing in the early years, these people all had kind expressions on their faces, all of them rushing to get close to them. But now that the Ning family was in such a difficult situation, were they all going to kick them while they were down? In the end, they were still relatives, so why would they do this? Even though Ning Rufeng was a stubborn person, he didn't reveal a bitter expression. His eyes were filled with a bit of weariness and sadness. What did they say? Ning Yuntao revealed a look of resentment. Several families said the same thing. They said that in order to manage our family's businesses these past years, they had invested a great deal of capital into it, so they don't want to suffer this loss. As he looked at his father's bitter appearance, there were some words he didn't say. Ning Rufeng closed his eyes, hiding the pain in them. Even if his son tried to hide it, he had lived to this day and had seen many things, so he could guess what was going on. As he thought about how his eldest son was now neither man nor ghost, and how the Ning family had been forced into a dead end, his breathing quickened and his face paled. Ning Yuntao fell to his knees. "It is all because I am useless. I can't support the Ning family's reputation, and father is already so old, yet I still have to worry about these things." He clenched his teeth. In the end, these businesses are still our Ning family's. Before, I only cared about the face of our relatives and didn't want this matter to blow up. But since they don't care about face, I will go all out and fight with them. Ning Rufeng opened his eyes, his expression severe. "Fool, what kind of status did those people have? If they didn't have anyone backing them up, how could they be so presumptuous? If you lose your sense of propriety, you will only fall into someone else's trap." The Ning family is currently in a precarious situation. If something happens to you, this family will be finished. Ning Yuntao's face turned red and his lips trembled, but he didn't know what to say. The study fell into silence for a while. After a long time, it was Ning Rufeng who broke the silence. In the end, he was an old man who had lived for countless years. It was unknown what was going on in his heart, but he had already composed himself on the surface. Right now, the only way is to make a trip to East Sun City. As he spoke to Here, he revealed a bit of hesitation. Increase the gift by 30%. Also, tell Ning Liang that she will follow us on our journey in several days. The meaning of these words caused Ning Yuntao's eyes to widen. He exclaimed softly, "Father!" Ning Rufeng remained expressionless. I also love this girl, but she was born into the Ning family, and it was the Ning family that raised her. At this time, if we need her to sacrifice herself, that is also her duty. Father, Ning Liang has been tormented by cold poison since she was a child. It hasn't been too long since she recovered. If Father wishes to offer a gift to His Highness the Saint's son, why don't you choose someone else? Ning Yuntao clenched his teeth. My third daughter has an extremely good temperament and appearance. Ning Rufeng shook his head. There is no need to say anything more. Your father has already made up his mind. Ning Yuntao left in a daze. In the study, Ning Rufeng closed his eyes, tears rolling down his cheeks. A dignified, noble family of the demonic path actually had to offer up their first daughter in exchange for the safety of their family. This was all because of his incompetence. Girl, don't blame me. Grandfather has no other choice. His whispers were bleak and desolate. Holy Land, small world, sky pivot division. Elder Qing Ruhong rarely went into seclusion. She sat in an empty hall, her eyes empty. It was clear her mind had already left. But even if she was absent-minded, she still had the powerful senses of a calamity immortal. When space fluctuated, her eyes lit up like two bolts of lightning tearing through the darkness of the hall. Bang! A boundless aura instantly erupted, instantly suppressing the entire hall. With just a thought, a terrifying suppression could descend. Elder Qing, there is no need to be like this. I have no ill intentions. A gentle voice echoed out. Faint traces of darkness gathered in the hall, forming a figure that rapidly solidified. It was Mu Yunli. Qing Ruhong sat on her throne, her cold eyes not relaxing in the least because of his words. Mr. Mu, why have you come uninvited? Mu Yunli lightly said. I feel a bit of sorrow for Liang. It's fine if he died an innocent death. But the people of the world can't even feel the slightest bit of hatred towards him, much less take revenge for him. Gotcha! The floor of the hall instantly shattered. Countless cracks spread outwards like a spider web. Qing Ruhong stubbornly stared at Mu Yunli. How do you know his name? Mu Yunli had a calm expression. After living for so long, there will always be some hidden cards that others don't know about. Elder Qing, there is no need to pry too deeply into this. Liang was the name of the endless sea's great array spirit, and this name was given by Qing Ruhong. She looked at Mu Yunli and said, If Mr. Mu is mourning for my old friend, then I have already received your kind intentions. If there is nothing else, then forgive me for not seeing you off. Mu Yunli said, In the endless sea, there is indeed no absolute right or wrong. But Elder Qing must admit that no matter what, it was Yao Bin who attacked and killed Liang. It is a pity that he has always scrupulously abided by his duty and never made the slightest mistake, but now he has fallen to such a fate. It is truly a pity. Qing Ruhong was expressionless. She looked at him without a word. Mu Yunli faintly smiled. It seems that I spoke too much. Since Elder Qing has already put down this matter, I won't disturb you any further. Farewell. He turned and stepped away, his figure vanishing from sight. Qing Ruhong furrowed her eyebrows. She was well aware that Mu Yunli had come here today with the intention of deliberately provoking them. But she couldn't help but imagine the scene of her meeting Liang. Liang was a flesh and blood spirit, and it wasn't easy for him to be born. He was cautious and only hoped that one day he would be able to escape the imprisonment of the Great Array formation and live freely in this world. They had discussed this for a long time and had already made some progress. Without accident, they would soon achieve their wish. But at this time, Yao Bin had rushed into the road of sea burial. In a daze, that beam of light that fell from the heavens appeared in front of her. It crashed into the endless sea, shocking everyone within the demonic path and also crushing away all of Liang's life force. Sometimes, reason couldn't completely control one's emotions. Qing Ruhong remained silent, a bit more obscurity in her eyes. Cloud Cluster City, Mu family. In an underground palace, Mu Yunli opened his eyes. After a moment of thought, he revealed a smile. He had already buried a seed of resentment in Qing Ruhong's heart. Perhaps it wouldn't grow, but as long as it took root and sprouted, it would be enough. Looking up at the dark hall in front of him, a bit of loathing flashed in Mu Yunli's eyes. He gently sighed. He never thought he would arrive at this step. But in this world, there was never a chance to choose again. Otherwise, a long, long time ago, he would rather, shaking his head, Mu Yunli mocked himself inwardly. Perhaps he really was too old to think that his imagination would run wild. He gathered his thoughts, and a sharp light shined in his eyes. Wasn't it about time he made his move? The Sky Corps Division was responsible for all array formations in the Holy Land. Besides detection and supervision, daily patrols and maintenance were also important and complex links. Of course, depending on how important an array formation was, the person in charge had to pass different levels of tests. For instance, this array formation with beautiful demonic runes could be ranked in the top 3 of the Sky Corps Division in terms of importance. Only the most trusted direct descendants of the Sky Corps Division had the qualifications to enter. Although I've seen it many times, I still can't help but say that these demonic runes are far too beautiful. The baby-faced cultivator sighed. The dark-skinned cultivator next to him smiled. Isn't that right? I heard that the demonic runes used to set up this array formation were directly extracted from the body of a powerful demon beast. It isn't something that can be created by humans. His expression turned solemn. Although we've entered more than once, we still have to repeat the rules. Don't make the slightest mistake. Otherwise, not only will we be finished, but our families will also be implicated. As he finished speaking, his voice and expression were stern. Several people revealed dignified expressions. They nodded to express their understanding. The dark-skinned cultivator turned around and saw that the person behind him was a bit nervous. Afraid that he would make a mistake, he comforted him. Brother-in-law, there is no need to be nervous. You and I are only going to enter the passage and will soon be done. Don't worry. The baby-faced cultivator laughed. Tianqing's temperament is the calmest. To see you so nervous today, your big brother and I didn't work together in vain to recommend you to enter. He winked and said, Your eldest son is almost a month old, right? When we come back, we'll have a good feast. I didn't drink enough pear blossom wine last time. Tianqing let out a breath and smiled. Good. The full moon feast will be carefully prepared. Big brother and all the other brothers must come to support us. Seeing him relax, the dark-skinned cultivator patted his shoulder and turned. Let's go. The group stepped into the demonic ruins. Black demonic light gushed out, swallowing up their figures. Their vision blurred for a moment, and when they recovered, they found themselves in an illusory passage that constantly twisted. Tianqing looked around. Big brother, is this the passage to enter the demon realm? The dark-skinned cultivator nodded. Without speaking, he took out the required testing equipment and led the others forward. Because this was the first time he had come here, he only planned to familiarize himself with the place and hadn't arranged any specific tasks. Tianqing smiled and stayed behind, letting the others go first. He followed behind, looking around. From time to time, he would reveal a look of praise, as if he were quite shocked by this. The passage was normal. 2 days later, they arrived at the end. If they continued forward, they would be halfway through. The pulling power of the demon realm wasn't something they could contend with. The dark-skinned cultivator relaxed. Good. Once we complete the last test, we can call it a day. When we return, I'll treat everyone to a drink. Everyone cheered. Tianqing stopped. As he looked at the smiling crowd, a complex look appeared on his face, but it soon turned into an apologetic one. He lifted his hand, and a red crystal appeared in his palm. As he looked at its pure and translucent surface, the faces of his wife and child seemed to appear. He took a deep breath and sighed inwardly. In this life, I've let you two down. I hope I can make it up to you in my next life. Gotcha! With a light sound, everyone froze. The dark-skinned cultivator turned around in astonishment. He looked at the shattered crystal in his brother-in-law's hand. Before he could say a single word, His field of vision was flooded by overwhelming blood-red flames. On this day, the channel to the demon realm collapsed, and the Sky Hub division fell into chaos. Chapter 563/P. The demon envoy rushed to the Sky Hub division as soon as possible. His complexion was dark, and his eyes were cold. Elder Qing, how long will it take for the channel to be restored? Qing Ruhong lightly said, the channel has already collapsed, and no one can enter. I can't make a complete estimate of the damage, but in my opinion, it is unlikely that the channel can be completely repaired. The demon envoy's complexion darkened. He looked at the chaotic Sky Hub division and suppressed the anger in his chest. Now was not the time to investigate who was responsible. Elder Qing, you should be well aware of the importance of the Demon World channel. I hope that you can do your best. Qing Ruhong was silent for a moment. She nodded. Demon Envoy, rest assured that as the head of the Sky Hub division, I am duty-bound. The Demon Envoy cupped his hands together and hurried away. Looking at his back, a complicated expression appeared on Qing Ruohong's indifferent face. Her expression fluctuated for a long time before it finally turned into a sigh. The Demon World channel was particularly important to the Holy Palace. Thus, besides the main transmission channel, there was also a backup channel left in the Holy Palace. Because of her status, Qing Ruhong was able to come into contact with this secret. If she were to speak of the destruction of the channel, it would instantly vanish. But, after hesitating for a long time, she chose to remain silent. Yaobin wasn't wrong. Moreover, he was the Holy Palace's holy son and couldn't be offended, but how could a cold life dissipate in vain? The seed of resentment in her heart had already taken root. The previous demon envoy had a frosty complexion. He coldly said, after Bai Xinyuan's matter, the demonic path's 3 factions have already begun an internal investigation. How would there be a fish that slipped through the net? And Yang, you were too careless. The demon envoy bitterly smiled and bowed. Teacher, Bai Xinyuan's accident has caused the 3 factions to panic. The investigation began from the top to the bottom in order to prevent spies from taking risks out of desperation. So we didn't consider those at the bottom. Humph. The previous demon envoy didn't change his expression. He hesitated for a moment and said, can Qing Ruhong's words be trusted? The demon envoy furrowed his eyebrows. Perhaps teacher is worrying too much. Elder Qing has a proud temperament and shouldn't do anything that would harm the demonic path. This disciple believes in her. The previous demon envoy's complexion eased as he saw that he didn't lose his composure. I don't suspect that she played a role in this matter. With Qing Ruhong's status, destroying the Demon World channel is far simpler than this. The demon envoy's thoughts stirred. Teacher, do you mean to say that it's about the restoration of the channel? The previous demon envoy was expressionless. Don't forget about the endless sea's great array spirit. This old man watched little Qing grow up. She may seem cold on the surface, but deep down, she is a very loyal person. The demon envoy was solemn. This disciple understands. I will pay attention to this matter. The previous demon envoy closed his eyes. After several breaths of time, he coldly said, these past years, because the seat of the holy monarch has been vacant, the demonic path and the immortal sect have always been patient in their conflicts. It seems that they have forgotten that in terms of destruction and slaughter, we are far more skilled. Pass down the order. Have the shadows move and give the immortal sect a warning. Don't let them act too recklessly. Dongyang City. Due to the conferring ceremony of the Holy Sun, the already bustling city became even livelier. Cultivators in luxurious clothes walked back and forth on the long streets, and most of them had guards behind them. A considerable portion of them had followed their fathers and grandparents here to broaden their horizons. None of the young masters and young ladies, who usually lived like princes, were easy to deal with. In just several days, several battles had occurred in Danyang City. Luckily, although these second-generation playboys were playboys, they weren't brainless. They didn't make a big deal out of things. In the current situation, causing trouble in Danyang City was the same as losing face to His Highness the Holy Sun. However, there were exceptions, and some people were even doing this on purpose. For instance, on the long streets, Fong Chongling had bumped into someone from the Ning family. The juniors following behind him looked at the crowd and at a woman wearing a white veil. Although their faces were blurry, the beautiful aura that wafted out from her caused their eyes to brighten. "Old man Ning, we haven't seen each other for over a dozen days, so why do you look so haggard? There are some things that need to be accepted, so there is no need to waste your energy." Fong Chongling smiled as he spoke, his tone sincere. Ning Rufeng had no expression. "My body is very good, and there is no need for Patriarch Fong to worry about me. I still have matters to attend to today, so I bid my farewells." He led his people away. Fong Chongling stepped to the side. "Meeting is fate, so there is no need for old man to reject me 1,000 miles away." His eyes fell on Ning Rufeng. "Is this niece Ning Liang? She is truly beautiful. I can't help but feel pity for her. I heard that the old man came to Danyang City, this time not only to pay respects to His Highness the Holy Sun, but also to find a husband for your niece. Old man, please take a look. Behind me are several of the most outstanding juniors of the Ning family. How about our two families form a marriage alliance so that we can support each other in the future?" Ning Rufeng's complexion changed. He said, "Patriarch Fong, please be careful with your words. My granddaughter has no intention of looking for a husband. I appreciate Patriarch Fong's good intentions." Fong Chongling gasped. His complexion became strange. Could the rumors be true? The reason old man Ning brought his niece to Danyang City is because he wants to offer her to His Highness. In the end, we are a noble family of the demonic path, so we need to preserve some face. If old man Ning were to deliver himself to our doorstep, I fear others would look down on his niece Ning Ling." "Shut up." Ning Yuntao was enraged. His eyes looked as if he could eat someone alive. "Fong Chongling, stop slandering us. Do you really think that our Ning family can only be bullied and humiliated by you?" He could naturally see the sinister intentions of the Fong family. Today, they had brought up the topic of looking for a husband in front of everyone, first ruining Ning Ling's reputation. Then, they brought up the matter of offering her to His Highness. They wanted to cut off any path of survival for the Ning family. Looking at his silent niece, and thinking about how calm she was after hearing the news, the anger in Ning Yuntao's chest burned even hotter, and his eyes began to turn red. Fong Chongling's complexion darkened. "Ning Yuntao, you aren't the Ning family patriarch yet, and yet you dare to be so insolent? Do you want me to teach you what it means to respect your juniors?" Behind him, the group of Fong family cultivators all had dangerous looks in their eyes. Several of them looked at Ning Liang without the slightest scruple. If there really was a conflict, they would find a chance to grope her body a few times to satisfy their cravings. Not only would this girl lose all face, but they would also want to see if the Ning family still had the courage to offer her to His Highness. The Fong family had already planned this. The Ning family patriarch had already been enraged. Just as a conflict was about to break out, a cold shout rang out. "All of you stop." The crowd of onlookers quickly dispersed, and a group of true demon guards entered. The one leading them was Shang Yuntai. His indifferent eyes swept over the crowd. "The grand ceremony is approaching, so there must be no chaos in East Sun City. I hope everyone can restrain themselves. Otherwise, we will have to intervene." Fong Chongling secretly frowned. Everything had gone smoothly today, but he never expected the sudden arrival of the true demon guards would disrupt everything. They were subordinates of His Highness the Saint Sun, so they couldn't be offended. Without batting an eyelid, Fong Chongling looked at the steward beside him. The steward immediately put on a bright smile and bowed. "This is all a misunderstanding. Our Xichang Fong family is old friends with Xianyang City's Ning family. So how could we possibly cause trouble?" With a single sentence, the steward's identity was revealed. Anyone with some experience would understand. The steward's smile became even brighter, and he calmly handed over a storage ring. "Everyone, it has been hard on you all to patrol the city. Here is some money for wine. Use it to buy a few banquet tables. This is our Fong family's way of showing respect to His Highness, the Saint's son. These last words were very skillful. Even if he took benefits in front of everyone, he wouldn't be criticized by others. If it were anyone else, perhaps they would care about the reputation of a demonic path family and would choose to keep the peace. But Shang Yuntai had experienced the loss of his beloved, so he didn't have the slightest bit of goodwill towards these powerful families. Of course, the most important thing was that His Highness stood behind him. We follow His Highness, the Saint's son, and will be provided for by His Highness. There is no need for you all to worry about us. Please leave immediately. The steward's smile froze on his face. Fong Chongling took a deep breath. Let's go. Although he was depressed, he knew in his heart that these true demon guards in front of him were people he couldn't provoke. Ning Rufeng hesitated for a moment. He didn't step forward to thank them. He nodded with gratitude and quickly left with his people. The storm was resolved. Seeing that there was no more excitement, the crowd began to disperse. However, many eyes fell on Shang Yuntai. From a servant to a master, looking at the style of these true demon guards, it seemed that His Highness, the Saint's son, wasn't someone easy to fool. Everyone felt even more awe towards him. Big Brother Shang. Shichang's Fong family has been rising in prestige in recent years. I also know a few things about their grudges with the Ning family. This is a conflict between powerful families. If we interfere, I fear it will be a thankless task. A true demon guard whispered, worry in his eyes. Shang Yuntai lightly said, I know you have good intentions, but you should remember that since you and I are working for the true demon guards, our only master is His Highness. If you and I can't even complete His Highness orders, then what use is there even if we are smooth and slick? All right, let's continue our patrol. The true demon guards revealed looks of shame. They had been secretly complaining that Shang Yuntai shouldn't have interfered, but now they had all regained their composure. Now that the Holy Palace already had His Highness, if they continued to do things in such a muddle-headed manner, they feared they wouldn't be able to wear their armor for much longer. Thinking about it again, with His Highness supporting them, what did these demonic path families count for? Even if they offended them, would they dare to jump out and make things difficult for them? That was unless they were tired of living. Everyone's spirits rose. As they looked around, there was a bit more light in their eyes. Fong Chongling brought his people back to his courtyard in East Sun City. Although this was a newly bought courtyard that hadn't been decorated, it was still magnificent and magnificent. He thought that after he pledged his allegiance to His Highness the Saint's son, some juniors would have to stay here and listen to his orders. This courtyard had been prepared for them in advance. But after what happened just now, Fong Chongling suddenly felt that his thoughts had been a bit too optimistic. His face darkened even more. In these past years, the Fong family had been smooth sailing. As the patriarch of the Fong family, when had he ever lost face? Even the extremely high-status elderly had been polite to him. But today he had been humiliated by several true demon guards. After sending everyone away, the steward hesitated for a moment. He said, Sir, there's no need to be angry. The status of the true demon guards these past years has been quite awkward. Now that they have someone to rely on, it is inevitable that they will be a bit arrogant. What kind of person is His Highness the Saint's son? He will naturally understand that our Fong family has taken the initiative to pledge allegiance to His Highness the opportunity to gather the local forces. He will definitely be courteous to me to win people's hearts. Saying this, he sneered. At that time, these true demon guards in front of me will be very careful and try to curry favor with me. Fong Chongling snorted and felt a lot more at ease. Today is a great opportunity. I originally wanted to cut off the Ning family, but a few stinky bugs ruined my plan. In the future, I will not forgive them. Saying this, he slammed the table with hatred. The steward complimented him again. Fong Chongling smiled a bit more. He waved his hand and said, Is the matter settled? Today I have not finished all the work, so I can only act first. Everything is settled. We will be in front of the Ning family. After I pay my respects to His Highness the Saint's son, maybe those Ning family people won't even have the chance to enter the hall. Fong Chongling thought for a moment. I originally wanted to see that old bastard Ning's appearance, but now that I think about it, it seems a bit inappropriate. Let's move the ranking up a bit. Otherwise, if His Highness wants to see the Ning family people on a whim, he might say something unpleasant and cause unnecessary trouble. The steward respectfully said, "It seems this sir has thought things through. I will immediately arrange it." On the third day, it was time to pay respects to His Highness. The St. Palace's main doors were wide open, accommodating guests from all directions. The true demon guards were on the outside, and the sage nether guards were on the inside. The Ning family's gifts were generous, but they were currently in a precarious situation. In the rankings of the various demonic path families, they were ranked near the bottom. Ning Rufeng, Ning Yuntao, and Ning Liang brought several cultivators from their families with them. They stood in the vast crowd, a bit of worry on their faces. Although they didn't know what the Fong family's goal in coming to Eastern Sun City was, they didn't need to use their left knee to know that they didn't have good intentions. The conflict in the city that day was the best evidence. As everyone was silent, the greeting began. The first person to be invited into the hall was naturally the guest with the highest status. Although today was nominally a greeting to the master of the land, the truth was that many people with great backgrounds had come. Everyone listened carefully. The elders of the St. Palace had sent congratulatory gifts, and even Blue Sky Yellow Springs had sent people to deliver gifts. After the incident with by Xinyuan, Blue Sky Yellow Springs had maintained a very kind attitude towards Xinyu. This was also one of the important reasons why everyone recognized Xinyu's status. Ning Rufeng sighed inwardly. He had heard that His Highness was a new disciple of the demonic path. He was originally an unknown nobody, but who could have imagined that in less than 2 years he would have his current achievements? As the identities of the guests that came to congratulate him entered his ears, it was like thunder piercing his ears. If he had been related to any one of them, the Ning family wouldn't have fallen into such a difficult situation today. At this time, the uneasiness in Ning Rufeng's heart about relying on His Highness the Saint's son had mostly dissipated. If he could really become a trusted aide of His Highness, then the future of the Ning family would be bright. His thoughts wandered even further. His Highness wasn't too old. If that girl Ning Liang could enter his eyes, then perhaps it would be a good marriage bestowed by the heavens. Thinking of this, the guilt in Ning Rufeng's heart lessened by a bit. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice echoed out. "Xichang Fong family, enter the hall to pay respects to the Saint's son." Fong Chongling led several people forwards. As he passed by the Ning family, he turned his head and coldly sneered. This glance caused the entire Ning family to lose confidence. As they watched the Fong family leave, a bit more uneasy appeared on their faces. They followed behind the holy nether guard and entered the main hall. A dignified and solemn aura rushed towards them, as if an invisible mountain were pressing down on them. Fong Chongling's complexion changed. He bowed even more and respectfully said, "Xichang Fong family's Fong Chongling and his nephew greet Your Highness the Saint's son." "Greetings, Your Highness." It was no wonder that the several proud and arrogant people of the family had been so supportive of the Fong family's decision to rely on the Saint's son. Who would have thought that His Highness would have such a cultivation? This aura, even if it wasn't at the Calamity Immortal realm, it was likely close. "Peace, rise." A light voice echoed out from above. Although it was young, it was filled with dignity and dignity. Fong Chongling respectfully stood up. He heard the voice continue to say, "Patriarch Fong is too kind. This solitude likes those 2 9-mark blood lotuses very much. Please sit." He hadn't wasted his energy to obtain the blood lotuses. Fong Chongling looked at the envy in everyone's eyes, and his spirits rose. "It's good that Your Highness likes them." Although the Xichang Fong family is newly established, everyone in the family abides by their status. In the future, if Your Highness has any orders, the Fong family will not hesitate to go through fire or water to fulfill them. For the head of an aristocratic family to say these words, it was a bit too blunt. There was a stir in the main hall. Many of the guests that had already paid their respects revealed looks of regret. Although everyone wanted to rely on His Highness for better or worse, they still maintained their status. They thought that after today's grand ceremony, they would secretly reveal their intentions to His Highness, who knew that the Fong family would play their cards against common sense. They didn't care about face at all. Although they were straightforward, they still took the lead. As the first aristocratic family to rely on His Highness, it could already be expected that they would receive preferential treatment in the future. Qin Yu's eyes flashed, but he wasn't surprised. With his current status in the demonic path, it was normal for aristocratic families of the demonic path to come to him. He just didn't think that the Fong family would be so impatient. Still, this is a good start. His tone relaxed a great deal. This solitude understands Patriarch Fong's intentions. If there is anything inappropriate in the future, this solitude will take responsibility for you. If the Fong family was willing to pledge allegiance to him, then Qin Yu didn't mind making a promise. The eyes in the main hall turned even hotter. If they had any killing power, then Fong Chongling would likely have been burnt to ashes by now. Not to mention anything else, but with His Highness's words today, anyone that wanted to make things difficult for the Fong family in the future would have to think twice. Fong Chongling was overjoyed. He respectfully bowed and led his people to the side of the main hall. A cultivator from the Holy Palace came forward to guide them. After they were seated, Fong Chongling saw that the seats were only inferior to those of the honored guests. He was incomparably satisfied. The Ning family's stubborn resistance had actually helped the Fong family make the right choice. As Fong Chongling thought of his family's prosperity, his smile became even brighter. No matter how envious everyone was, they didn't reveal anything on their faces. At this time, many people gathered around, their words full of flattery. Looking at Fong Chongling's old chrysanthemum-like face, they all secretly warned themselves that in the future, it would be best if they didn't care about things like face. If they had realized this a long time ago, then the Fong family wouldn't even have existed. The surroundings suddenly quieted down. Fong Chongling looked up and saw a woman with a cold temperament, as beautiful as a painting, walking towards him. Although he didn't know her identity, the two Saint Sun Palace maids following behind her were enough to prove her status. His thoughts raced, and he quickly stood up. Hai Lan bowed. She lightly said, "Patriarch Fong, since you are willing to run errands for His Highness will not mistreat you. Is there a problem that requires His Highness's assistance?" The meat show had arrived. Fong Chongling respectfully said, "Reporting to Miss, the Fong family is currently facing some difficulties. I asked that Miss pass on a message to His Highness." He immediately spoke of the grudge he had with the Ning family. The matter was still the same, but with a bit of embellishment. The Fong family was now surnamed Do. Seeing Hai Lan remain calm, Fong Chongling carefully said, "Right now, the Fong family is waiting outside the hall. I heard that they also want to enter His Highness's service." There was no need to speak too clearly. The meaning was clear. Hai Lan nodded. "I understand Patriarch Fong's meaning." She stood up, bowed, and left. Several Fong family juniors looked at her slender back and couldn't help but gulp. It was only after Fong Chongling glared at them that they awkwardly looked away. Hai Lan furrowed her eyebrows, a bit of coldness in her eyes. As she thought about how the Fong family was the first family she had pledged loyalty to, she suppressed the loathing in her heart. Although she didn't have an official position right now, she was still temporarily managing the Saint Palace's affairs. After asking around, she gained an approximate understanding of the grudge between the Fong family and the Ning family. Thinking for a moment, Hai Lan took advantage of a break in her worship to quietly approach Qin Yu. "Your Highness, there are some matters in the Fong family that require your judgment." Qin Yu didn't care about the grudges between two noble families of the demonic path. But as he listened to her speak, he frowned. "The Shichong Ning family?" Hai Lan said, "Yes. I heard that the Ning family left the Holy Land a long time ago and just returned. What is their patriarch called?" "Ning Rufeng." It really was them. A strange light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. What was this? Fong Chongling had run over here to falsely accuse his Dao companion's maiden family, who had borrowed the Fong family's dog Courage. Chapter 564. Hailanlan did not get a response. Your Highness. Qin regained his composure. He narrowed his eyes. Go and investigate the current situation of the Ning family. Yes. Hailanlan took a few steps back, her eyes filled with surprise. Did His Highness have a relationship with the Ning family? Although she did not have a good impression of the Fong family, she still felt some pity for them. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. That was probably what it meant. The entanglement between the Fong and Ning families wasn't some secret. After Hailanlan carefully asked several people, she was able to clearly understand the current situation of the Ning family. It wasn't too much to say that they were completely deserted by their own family. In the outside world, there are also several noble families of the demonic path, led by the Fong family that had ill intentions towards them. However, since the Ning family and His Highness were old friends, and His Highness also valued them a lot when dealing with them, as long as they asked His Highness for help, all troubles would vanish like smoke in thin air. Why would it be so difficult? Hailanlan couldn't figure it out. Shaking her head, she suppressed her thoughts and imprinted the information into the Jade Scroll. Regardless of the reason why the Ning clan did not request for help, the predicament they faced after today would be easily resolved. In fact, it would even allow the entire clan to welcome a bright future. Qin withdrew his divine sense from the jade slip. He maintained his composure, but his eyes turned a bit colder. When the events of Four Seasons City had caused an uproar, the Ning family had hurriedly returned to the Holy Land because they were worried that they would be punished by the immortal sect. Now that the Ning family was in such a situation, he couldn't shirk the responsibility. Guilt grew in Qin Yu's heart. After going through so much tempering and attaining his current cultivation and status, his mind was already sufficiently firm and wouldn't be easily affected by external affairs. But in the heart, there were always some soft spots, and Ningling was one of them. As Qin Yu thought about how there was no news of her in the immortal sect, he felt both anxious and resentful. If it weren't for the fact that he was weak, how could he not have been able to protect the person he loved? Although this thought was a bit unreasonable, it was what Qin Yu truly felt in his heart. In this state of mind, he valued the Ning family even more. Fong Chongling was courting death. If they wanted to protect the Ning family and improve their situation, today was the best opportunity. As long as they made their stance clear, no one would dare to have any ideas about the Ning family in the future. But this wasn't easy to do. No matter what, the Fong family was the first noble family of the demonic path to join his side. If he didn't have a good reason to deal with them, then he feared that other influences would be scared away. His thoughts raced and his eyes brightened. That was it. After carefully considering it several times and determining that there weren't any problems, Qin Yu suddenly said, "Pause for a moment." He swept his eyes around the hall. This solitude just heard that the Shichong Fong family and another noble family of the demonic path, the Xianyang Ning family, are in conflict. Fong Chongling's heart skipped a beat. Why had Her Highness suddenly mention these things? Secretly nervous, he hurriedly got up and walked out. It's just a small matter. Your Highness doesn't need to worry about it. Today is a joyous occasion, so don't ruin the mood of Your Highness and everyone else. Qin Yu said, the Fong family has been loyal and devoted to this solitude. Now that they have suffered grievances, how can this solitude sit idly by? His body leaned forwards. Patriarch Fong, tell us what happened and let the guests know. Today, I will uphold justice for you. Fong Chongling heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, and then he groaned bitterly in his heart. Some things were bound to be hidden in the shadows, and there was absolutely no reason to bring them out in the open. But looking at Qin Yu's solemn expression, it seemed as if thunder were brewing in his chest, and he would definitely use it to win over the hearts of the people. If he refused to cooperate with Her Highness, then his favorable impression of him would likely be greatly reduced, and it would even increase the impression that he was disobedient. Fong Chongling clenched his teeth and steeled his heart. What was losing some face? As long as he could curry favor with Her Highness, the Fong family would still be able to walk unhindered within the demonic path in the future. With his thoughts settled, he revealed a sorrowful expression. I didn't want to make too much noise to begin with, but now that I think about it, it's really shameful. A wonderful story had just been born. It had even more explosive points than what Hai Lan Lan had heard. It could be called a climax after climax, one that left those who heard it sad and those who saw it in tears. It was obvious that in this story, the Fong family had become the safe and secure victim. The hall was quiet. Countless eyes fell on Fong Chongling. Looking at his red eyes, his trembling fingers, the grief and indignation, the shame and helplessness in his eyes, they couldn't help but raise a thumbs up in their hearts. Everyone present knew a little about the matters between the Fong family and the Ning family. One didn't need to be a genius to know that they had seen the Ning family decline, so they had the thought of swallowing them whole. It was already difficult to lie with one's eyes wide open, much less speak in such a touching manner. Fong Chongling was truly a talent. Whether it was shamelessness or thickness, he far surpassed the average person. No wonder the Fong family was able to stand out from the crowd and occupy a place in His Highness the Saint's son's heart. There's a reason for this. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. He coldly said, "Patriarch Fong, is what you say true?" Fong Chongling was stunned. Of course it was false, but his tone was resolute and decisive. "I'm not lying at all. I beg your highness to uphold justice for the Fong family." Now that he had laid the groundwork, he needed to hurry up and deal with the Ning family. Although his skin was thick enough, with so many eyes in the hall looking at him, it didn't feel good at all. "How dare you?" Qin Yu slapped the armrest of his throne. In this bright world, in the demonic path's holy land, there's actually someone so daring and arrogant as to use the name of a demonic path noble family. This is truly infuriating. Come, pass on this solitude's order. Summon the Ning family to the hall. This solitude wants them to confront Patriarch Fong face to face. Fong Chongling was stunned. There was something wrong with the script. How could the Ning family be summoned here? He panicked. He hurriedly said, "Your Highness, there is no need to." Qin Yu waved his hand, interrupting him. "Patriarch Fong, rest assured. Today, this solitude will have the Ning family bow their heads in apology in front of all the guests. You will be satisfied." "Wrong, wrong. Your Highness, please stop messing around." Fong Chongling's eyes widened. Before he could say anything else, he heard a voice announce, "Your Highness, the Ning family has arrived." Qin Yu sat up straight. "Summon." The Holy Nether Guard turned and shouted out loud. His helmet reflected the sunlight, splashing with a blurry blood-red light. "Your Highness has decreed that Xianyang City's Ning family requests an audience." Ning Ruffeng lowered his head and entered the hall. As he felt the strange silence, he became increasingly nervous. He didn't know what was happening, but he didn't dare to look around and directly bowed. "Xianyang City's Ning family's Ning Ruffeng greets your Highness." Ning Yuntao and Ning Ling followed close behind and bowed. Their faces were a bit pale. How could Qin Yu accept their greetings? He lightly coughed and said, "Rise." He lifted a hand and pointed a finger. "The Patriarch of Xichang's Fong family has come to sue your Ning family for abusing their power to bully others. Does Patriarch Ning have anything to say?" Ning Rufeng's face flushed red with anger. "Your Highness, please do not listen to the words of lowly people. Xichang's Fong family is distorting the truth, and there isn't a single bit of truth in their words." Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. "The Ning family means that the Fong family is falsely accusing you. Do you have any evidence?" Ning Ruffeng took a deep breath. "Your Highness, the Ning family has been in decline for many years, and we just returned to our fiefdom not too long ago. How could we have the spare strength to provoke the illustrious Fong family? The truth is that there are some lowly people who saw the Ning family fall from grace and wanted to encroach on my family's property and fiefdom. The reason I came to pay my respects to your Highness today was because I hoped that your Highness could uphold justice for me. I never thought that there would be lowly people who would maliciously slander me." He fell to his knees. "Your Highness, the specifics of this matter are not a secret. We will know if it is true or false once we investigate it. I implore your Highness to give my Ning family justice." In the hall, As everyone looked at Fong Chongling's shame and indignation, they all felt happy. That surname Fong had allowed you to show off, but now you're out of luck. However, they couldn't figure out what His Highness meant by this. Since he had taken in the Fong family, why did he have to embarrass them? Could it be that His Highness wanted to tell them that as long as they were his subordinates, he would protect them no matter what? Although this was what everyone was hoping for, how could such a thing be placed on the table? His Highness Saint Sun's actions were a bit too ugly. Thinking like this, many people began to look down on him. They thought that he really came from a humble background. Even if he had a respected status now, he had still lost the demeanor of a noble family. The pitiful Ning family still hadn't figured this out. No matter how angry they were, what could they do? In this world, the weak had no right to speak. The more they struggled now, the more miserable their final result would be. Looking at that Ning family girl with her head lowered, her appearance, temperament, and figure were all top-notch. TSK, what a pity, what a pity. Fong Chongling clenched his teeth, wishing he could rip off Ning Rufing's mouth. But thinking about it, so what if they said anything? Would His Highness even care? As for the three Ning family members, they were like clowns on stage. Their fates had already been decided, but they still didn't know it. He coldly sneered. Ning Rufeng, no matter how glib your tongue is, justice is in the hearts of the people. His Highness's eyes are like torches. How could he allow you to wantonly quibble? He turned and bowed. Your Highness, you have seen it for yourself. The Ning family still hasn't shown any repentance. We cannot forgive them so easily. Ning Yuntao's anger attacked his heart. Fong Chongling, you despicable villain. The hall was incomparably quiet, making his voice particularly grating. Looking at everyone's expressionless faces and the faint regret in their eyes, Ning Yuntao suddenly regained his composure. His body shook and endless sorrow rose in his heart. He looked up, his voice filled with pain and despair. Your Highness, you are the Highness of the Holy Palace. How could you not distinguish between right and wrong? My Ning family has been loyal to the demonic path for generations, but in the end we have fallen to such a state. I refuse to accept this. I refuse to accept this. Pa! With a resounding slap, Ning Yuntao fell to the ground. Ning Rufeng's hands trembled and he shouted, Shut up! Just what sort of honored status does His Highness have? How dare you offend him? He fell to his knees. I ask His Highness to be magnanimous and not lower yourself to the same level as this idiot. The Ning family is willing to accept any judgment. Grandfather! Ning Liang looked up for the first time. Her eyes widened with disbelief. But what she saw was Ning Rufing's increasingly old face and the pain in his eyes. She suddenly understood that her grandfather's submission was only because he wanted to preserve the lives of the Ning family. The indifferent gazes around her caused Ning Liang's entire body to turn icy cold. She bit her lips and looked at the highest seat of the hall, at the Holy Sun. Was this the person who would inherit the throne of the Holy Monarch? Was the Holy Palace blind? At first glance, the first thing that entered her eyes was an unfamiliar face. It was extremely handsome, and there was a hint of immaturity amidst the ordinariness. But for some unknown reason, Ning Liang's heart skipped a beat. She felt a bit of familiarity, as if she had seen this face somewhere before. Then, as she saw those eyes, Ning Liang stiffened. Shock and astonishment appeared in her eyes that were filled with anger. Those eyes, in that instant her thoughts raced. The figure that she had been suppressing in her heart suddenly leapt into her mind. Two completely different faces, one ordinary and the other handsome. No one would ever compare them to each other. But now in Ning Liang's mind, the nose, the eyes, the eyebrows, they were clearly different, but the two faces gradually overlapped. Qin Yu cursed inwardly. He never thought that his current appearance would be recognized. He didn't want to reveal his true identity right now. He said in a low voice, Patriarch Ning, rest assured that this solitude will not punish you because of a moment of anger. It is just that this matter hasn't been investigated yet, and Patriarch Ning has already admitted his guilt on his own initiative. As something didn't seem right about this. The people in the hall all revealed looks of surprise. Just what sort of routine was His Highness playing? How come they didn't understand? Ning Ruffeng was stunned for a moment. Then, a thought appeared in his mind and his heart raced. He only hesitated for a tenth of a breath before he clenched his fists. This was his final chance. Even if there was only a slight chance, he had to give it his all. Ning Ruffeng fell to his knees and kowtowed. I was confused. I thank your highness for your magnanimity and for not blaming me. I am willing to use my life as a guarantee that everything I said before was true. Everything I said before was the Fong family's malicious slander. I ask that your highness investigate this clearly. Fong Chongling was both shocked and angry. Just as the curtain was about to fall, he never imagined that the tempo would suddenly change. As he heard Ning Rufeng's words, his heart shrank. His lips moved, but before he could speak, he heard a deep and low voice from above the hall. Patriarch Fong, do you dare to guarantee your words? Something was wrong. Something was wrong. No matter how slow his reaction was, he could still sense it. A cold sweat dripped down Fong Chongling's forehead. He looked up and saw Qin Yu's icy cold eyes. His heart shivered. If he continued to be stubborn, he might lose his life. But if he changed his words as he was struggling with his thoughts, he heard Qin Yu happily say, "It seems that Patriarch Fong has tacitly agreed." This solitude knew that someone as sincere as Patriarch Fong would not be a devious or evil person. Fong Chongling looked at Qin Yu's gentle expression and was a bit confused. Was it just an illusion just now? Did His Highness still stand on his side? In a daze, he subconsciously nodded and agreed to this point. Success! Qin Yu sneered inwardly. He stood up and looked around the hall. His eyes didn't contain the least bit of emotion, but they were filled with a formidable, oppressive pressure. This solitude is in a high position and has always been nervous. What I fear the most is being deceived by others and doing something wrong. I hope that everyone can truthfully answer this solitude's questions. He paused for a moment. The matter between the Fong and Ning families is not a secret. As for the truth, who can tell this solitude? The hall fell deathly silent, without a single sound. Everyone's eyes widened, feeling as if their brains weren't enough to process this. Did this mean that His Highness wanted a deal with the Fong family? But that wasn't right. His Highness was in need of people. Was it worth it for the sake of a declining Ning family? Let alone justice. Anyone that could reach such a high position in this world had a heart of stone. Good people would have long since died. Since they couldn't guess Qin Yu's thoughts, no one dared to speak. Time slowly passed. The silence was the same as before. Qin Yu lightly said, "What? Does no one know?" Between his eyebrows, there was a bit of ridicule. In the lower left seat, a youth suddenly flushed red. He wasn't convinced by this newly ascended saint's son to begin with, and he was already impatient to be arranged to congratulate him. How could he withstand this ridicule? Humph, this isn't a secret at all. It's just that everyone cares about His Highness Saint's son's face and doesn't want to talk about it. The complexion of the blue sky yellow springs cultivator changed. He pulled on the youth's sleeves, his face stiffening and revealing a bit of regret. Qin Yu's eyes were indifferent. This solitude wishes to hear the details. What he couldn't stand the most was this sort of pretentious and indifferent tone. What was there to be proud about? It was just good talent and luck. The youth's complexion darkened. In truth, it's very simple. A single sentence is enough. He lifted a hand and pointed. This person isn't telling the truth at all. Fong Chongling's face instantly paled. Qin Yu shook his head. The words of one family cannot be trusted. Everyone, please say something. Between the Fong and Ning families, who is lying? The youth felt that he wasn't trusted and his face paled. He ruthlessly glared at Qin Yu and stood up. Mr. Wei, we mentioned this a few days ago. Have you forgotten? The person called Mr. Wei had an embarrassed expression, but the youth's status was too high, so he could only grumble inwardly. He coughed and said, according to what I know, what young Master Lang said is correct. If he didn't trample on the Fong family, then he would have to offend the Langya bloodline. Was there even a need to choose? Qin Yu frowned. If it's just the two of you, that doesn't seem enough. The youth thought that Qin Yu wanted to establish his authority and protect the Fong family. He was enraged. Everyone, Mr. Wei and I have already spoken. Do you still want to remain silent? Or do you think that I have lied to Mr. Wei? His last words were filled with killing intent. No one could sit still. Cough. In truth, I have also heard of this. It seems that the Fong family is in the wrong. That is true. The Fong family is in the wrong. It is probably the Fong family's problem. Fong Chongling began to sweat profusely. The youth turned around. Your Highness, the facts are before you. Since you understand, please make a judgment. In this situation, he wanted to see how this saint's son would end things. Qin Yu was silent for a moment. Fong Chongling, what explanation do you have for this? Fong Chongling fell to his knees. Your Highness, the Fong family has been wrongly accused. But he couldn't say the rest. The Fong family had been wrongly accused. Didn't that mean that everyone in the hall was slandering them? If they offended a sea of people, wouldn't they be able to live with this in the future? His face flushed red. He could only kowtow and shout, Your Highness, please investigate this matter clearly. Investigate. This solitude should indeed investigate this matter clearly. Just who gave you the courage to openly persecute a demonic path noble family in a small world of the demonic path? Qin Yu's eyes were as sharp as blades, chilling to the bone. Although this solitude hasn't been the saint's son for long, I am well aware of how difficult it is to become a noble family of the demonic path. He lifted a hand and pointed. Dongting's Zhang family. 47 ancestors fought to the death without retreating, defending the territory of the demonic path. Their family only has women and children left over. Only then did they obtain the title of a noble family. He pointed again. East Flowers Chun family. They have raised demon beasts for generations. Because of the dangers, there are very few people in their family who live long lives, regardless of whether they are men or women. After 6 generations of blood and tears, they were finally granted a title by the demonic path. Huawei's Zhao family. They traversed the entire land of divinity and demons, searching for ancient ruins. Clear Cloud's Nangong bloodline, 7 families were mentioned. All of them were in the hall. As they thought of how much their ancestors had sacrificed for their family's name, their hearts surged and their eyes turned red. As they looked at the Fong family, their eyes became especially cold. Thanks to Hai Lan Lan, Qin Yu had recorded down all the important figures that had come to congratulate them. In particular, he had made detailed preparations against the background information of these noble families. Only then was he able to come up with this divine plan. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. So this solitude is really curious. Just who gave you the courage to recklessly persecute the Ning family? Men, drag Fong Chongling away and immediately execute him. Fong Chongling's eyes were filled with despair. As he looked at the holy nether guard rushing towards him, his mind buzzed. Even now, he didn't know why the situation had reached this point. When he was caught, his body tensed up, but in the next moment, he slumped back down. If he dared to resist, the Fong family would be thoroughly finished. Qin Yu sneered inwardly. Fong Chongling was quite smart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have minded using the entire Fong family as an example. Ta looked around the hall, his voice loud and clear. Everyone in the demonic path must remember that the dignity of noble families cannot be violated. In the future, if something similar happens to the Fong family, no matter who it is, this solitude will not be lenient. At this moment, the cultivators of the demonic path's noble families felt their hearts surge like the sea. They were so excited that tears filled their eyes. Without needing any guidance, they all fell to their knees, praising His Highness for his wisdom. Their thoughts of seeking refuge no longer wavered. Today, Qin Yu had won the hearts of everyone. In the seat on the left, the Blue Sky Yellow Springs cultivator looked at his young master who still had a confused look on his face. He sighed inwardly. The disparity between them wasn't normal at all. His eyes fell on Qin Yu, a bit more cautious. When he returned, he would tell the lords that His Highness could not be underestimated. Chapter 565. As the Saint Sun's grand ceremony passed, the flow of people in Eastern Sun City lessened. But news of this rapidly spread as the guests left. The Fong family had lost a family head and lost all face. They had become a card in the hands of the Saint Sun, exchanging for the loyalty of the various demonic path noble families. This sort of method was so fierce that anyone could only praise it as fierce. In addition, what attracted the most attention was the Ning family. A demonic path family that had already fallen into decline had actually overturned the prestigious Fong family. How could people not be amazed? And what was even more amazing was that the woman that the Ning family wanted to offer to His Highness was actually staying in the Saint Palace. This was especially important. His Highness's rise was astonishing, and he didn't give anyone a chance to win him over. Now, he didn't even have a single woman close to him. As for that woman from the Ning family, it was said that whether it was in terms of appearance or figure, she was top class. One couldn't help but wonder, if Ning Liang was able to rise to the top, she would be the most honored woman in the demonic path. The entire Ning family would benefit from this. Qin Yu ordered Ning Liang to stay in the palace, but he didn't make any specific arrangements. Hai Lan thought about it again and gave her the status of a palace official. Although this wasn't a high position, the Saint Palace had just been established and the staffing was simple. Including Hai Lan, there were only 3 female officials. And because of their status, besides His Highness himself, no one else had the qualifications to order them around. As the rumors spread in the outside world, the people in the palace looked at Ning Liang with envy and awe in their eyes. Even the other 2 female officials were polite to her. Hai Lan saw all of this, but her heart was calm. This was because she believed that His Highness keeping Ning Liang here had nothing to do with the matters between a man and a woman. But she was also a bit curious. Just what was the relationship between the Ning family and His Highness? Otherwise, with His Highness's status, why would he favor the Ning family so much? That's right, it was support. If Qin Yu kept Ning Liang in the palace, then even if he didn't say anything, no one in the demonic path would dare provoke the Ning family. But because she had limited information, Hai Lan could only see half of it. It was true that Qin Yu supported the Ning family, but the other reason was that he didn't want Ning Liang to reveal his identity. In the Grand Hall, although they had only exchanged glances, Qin Yu knew that this girl had likely recognized him. After Zhao Qinyuan left with a 9-mark blood lotus and bid his farewells in satisfaction, Qin Yu thought for 2 days and decided to see her. After receiving the summons from His Highness, Ning Liang's eyes brightened. Her heart surged with emotions, and she didn't notice the envy in the maid's eyes. "Auntie, please follow me." Qin Yu looked at Ning Liang, whose appearance and temperament were increasingly similar to Ning Ling's. His eyes were dazed for a moment, and he fell silent. After a few breaths, he coughed lightly and said, "Get up." Ning Liang looked up at the strange, yet familiar face. Her lips moved, but she didn't speak. Qin Yu smiled. He touched his face and said, "I originally thought that no one would see through this face of mine, but who would have thought that it would break apart in front of a little girl like you? I'm really curious as to how you did it." Ning Liang's eyes widened. She never thought that Qin Yu would directly admit to it. To change his appearance and name to enter the demonic path, he must have his own difficulties. Thinking about his current status, if others were to discover it, her heart tightened. She quickly said, "Your Highness, don't worry, I will not tell anyone." She suddenly felt a bit afraid. Power and status could distort a person's mind. Was the Qin Yu of today still the same person from Four Seasons City? In order to keep his secret, would he? Qin Yu immediately saw through Ning Liang's thoughts. He bitterly smiled and shook his head. "What nonsense are you thinking about? If I really wanted to silence them, would it be so complicated?" He hesitated for a moment. "But regarding my identity, I do need to keep a secret. Be careful when you sleep in the future, and don't let anything slip out in your dreams." Ning Liang covered her mouth and shook her head. Her actions left Qin Yu stunned for a moment before he began to laugh. His laughter caused Ning Liang to blush. She wasn't normally like this, so how could she not be able to help but act like a fool in front of His Highness? But she was actually happy in her heart. This was because she discovered that His Highness seemed to be much closer to her than he was in Four Seasons City. After a moment of hesitation, she quietly said, "Your Highness, can you tell me why you helped the Ning family again and again?" Qin Yu's smile froze. He frowned, not speaking. Ning Liang knew that she had said the wrong thing. Your Highness, just pretend I didn't ask. I was just curious. I'm sorry." Qin Yu took a deep breath and smiled. "It's fine. In the future, you don't need to be too cautious in front of me. As for your question, I can't tell you for now. Let's talk about it later." After speaking a few more words with Ning Liang, someone came over to see him. He had her leave first. After dealing with the matters at hand, Qin Yu leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes, a look of exhaustion on his face. Ever since he entered the land of divinity and demons, he had been working hard to change his destiny and make himself stronger. In the eyes of outsiders, Qin Yu was infinitely glorious. But how could they know just how difficult his struggles were? He had lost count of how many times he had been careless and turned into a skeleton. But soon, Qin Yu let out a deep breath, and his expression became firm once more. All of his weariness and gloom were swept away, and his aura became stronger once more. He had already arrived at this step. In the future, he would surely be able to control the Holy Palace. At that time, looking at the entire world, he would have the qualifications to play games. Ning Liang, wait for me. Immortal Sect, Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. Several palace maids carried flower baskets in their hands, docilely following behind a person as they quietly walked down the white jade road. Within the baskets were freshly picked mystic crystal lotuses. They were pure white without the least bit of impurities, and each petal seemed as if they were carved from ancient ice, emitting a faint chill. Recently, the palace master had gone into seclusion and needed to consume a massive amount of mystic crystal lotuses every day. Because these spirit plants couldn't be picked and stored ahead of time, there were special maids responsible for picking them every day. The first palace maid to the left had a respectful and obedient expression on her face. She was an old servant of the palace, and it was only because of this that she was able to stand out from the many competitors and obtain the chance to approach the palace master. Although this wasn't the first time she had seen that figure in the ice pond, the palace maid was still stunned. Her eyes revealed a bit of confusion, but she soon regained her composure. She sighed inwardly. This was truly a person so beautiful that even women couldn't help but be infatuated with him. And this was in a blurry state with rising cold energy. If she could clearly see him, she had no idea just how enchanting he would be. Unfortunately, such a beautiful woman was actually one of the immortal sect's 3 giants. No matter how close he was to her, he could only say sorry. After the last basket of mystic crystal lotuses was poured into the ice pond, the palace maid laid down the basket and gently sighed. The beautiful figure in the ice pond seemed to sense something and suddenly open her eyes. Their gazes met, and the palace maid revealed a happy expression. This was the first time she had seen the palace master's eyes. They were truly beautiful, like the pure sky without the least bit of impurities. To be able to see such beautiful eyes at the end of her life, she had no regrets. The palace maid stood up and respectfully bowed towards the ice pond. The other palace maids beside her all revealed panicked expressions. In the next moment, a heaven-shaking explosion interrupted their thoughts. A terrifying strength swept out, wrapping around them and tearing them to pieces. In that instant, the smell of blood flooded their noses and mouths. Shen Yuanyin lifted her hand, revealing her jade-like arm. She gently grasped it in front of her, and the impact of the explosion stopped, unable to approach at all. But she frowned. She looked down at the ice pond and saw that atop a pure white mystic crystal lotus, there was a blood-red ghost face that grinned. Puff! Shen Yuanyin spat out a mouthful of blood. Purple Moon just happened to arrive at this time. As she saw this, her pupils shrank and her face paled. Within the ice pond, the condensed runes quietly shattered and the mystic crystal lotuses withered away. Shen Yuanin flew out from the ice pond. She lifted her hand, and white clothes appeared from thin air, wrapping around her perfect body. She wiped away the blood from the corners of her lips and lowered her head. "Honorable Master, I'm fine." Purple Moon shivered. Fine? How could she be fine? After reaching large success of the sublime lost emotion code, one had to reach a level where one's body was as transparent as glass. Only then would they be able to withstand the power of forgetting emotion. Otherwise, their soul would rapidly wither away and they would die. This was the only flaw of the sublime lost emotion code, and also the greatest secret of Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace. Not even the lucid Nether Realm or the Buddhist kingdom knew of this. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, she didn't dare to pay too much attention to Shen Yuanin's seclusion. But who would have thought that at the critical moment of success, a mistake would occur? That palace maid who died with a satisfied heart would never have imagined that she had only wanted to give the immortal sect a warning, but she had actually harvested a giant Easter egg that had nearly destroyed one of the three giants. Purple Moon screamed, "Demonic path! Demonic path!" She had also seen the ghost face on the black crystal lotus. The rebirth curse of the blue sky yellow springs couldn't be wrong. Shen Yuanin had an indifferent expression, as if the one who had suffered a great setback and whose life was in danger wasn't her. "Honorable Master, rest assured that I won't die. This matter couldn't be made public." Purple Moon took a deep breath, but her eyes were still filled with a cold light. Shen Yuanin lowered her head, not revealing any emotion at all. No one would have guessed that what she was thinking about right now was the smile on that palace maid's face before she died. Death was the only terror in the world, so why would she smile? As Nine Heaven Mirror Moon Palace was tense on the inside and tense on the outside, Ning Liang also encountered trouble. She had received a notice to deal with some palace affairs, but after she entered the main hall, she didn't see a single person. When she turned around, the maid who led the way had already disappeared. Her heart tightened. Ning Liang turned to leave, but the hall doors had already closed. Everything in front of her turned dark, as if she had fallen into eternal night. The darkness submerged her like a tide, placing a powerful imprisonment on her. A deep and low voice sounded out in her mind. "Ning Liang, where did you meet His Highness?" The panic-stricken Ning Liang's eyes widened. She struggled with all her might, but all of her efforts were in vain. "Ning Liang, where did you meet His Highness?" The voice sounded out once more. It was low and light. "Ning Liang, where did you meet His Highness?" The voice was even lower and gentler. Ning Liang's struggling movements gradually slowed down, and her eyes began to glaze over. She tried to open her eyes wide, but she couldn't help but slowly close them. She was so tired. If she closed her eyes and slept, it would definitely be very, very sweet. The moment before her consciousness faded away, Ning Liang froze. In the next moment, her eyes widened as if she were in pain. Her black and white eyes instantly turned bloodshot. She opened her mouth to cry out, but all her strength seemed to be sucked out, and she couldn't make a single sound. The voice in her mind paused for a moment before continuing. "Where did you meet His Highness? Where did you meet His Highness? Where did you meet His Highness?" It was no longer gentle, but rather louder and louder, like rumbling thunder that wanted to shatter one's mind. Ning Liang's body twitched. She had already bitten through her lips. Her blood was slightly salty and hot, but she persisted in her final moments of clarity. Someone wanted to harm His Highness. She could not be controlled. She could not be controlled. Her consciousness was like grass in a torrential downpour. Every breath of time seemed to twist and stretch out endlessly, becoming especially long. Ning Liang thought of committing suicide, but to her dismay, she discovered that she couldn't even die. In her daze, a voice suddenly sounded out. "Stop! Let her go! It was His Highness!" In the next moment, Ning Liang's consciousness fell into darkness. After an unknown period of time, Ning Liang opened her eyes once more. As she saw Qin Yu's concerned expression, her eyes ached and tears tumbled down. Her body was still sore and weak. She couldn't lift a hand to wipe away her tears. Qin was filled with guilt. He reached out a hand and wiped away the tears. He comforted her. It's fine. Don't worry. Ning Liang regained her composure. She hurriedly said, Your Highness, someone wants to harm you. Qin nodded. I've already dealt with it. Don't think too much about it. Eat some pills and rest early. Seeing his calm expression, Ning Liang relaxed. A wave of exhaustion washed over her once more. She forcefully swallowed some pills and fell into a deep sleep. Looking at her pale face, Qin felt a bit of self-blame. If he had thought of this earlier, this girl wouldn't have suffered so much. Letting out a light breath, Qin walked out of the room. He looked at the demon envoy across from him, his complexion gloomy. Don't let something like this happen again. His voice was calm, but the demon envoy sighed inwardly. After learning of this matter, not much of the favorable impression he had of Qin remained. My apologies, Your Highness' status is too high, so I have no choice but to be cautious. I have already handed down punishment for the person who did this. He will never appear in front of Your Highness again. Although Qin knew that the demon envoy had his own difficulties, his complexion didn't soften. He needed the demon envoy to remember this matter. Lord Demon Envoy is busy. Now that my identity has been confirmed, why bother making another trip? The demon envoy sighed. I came here today because there is something I need to discuss with Your Highness. Seeing the demon envoy furrow his eyebrows in a dignified manner, Qin nodded. Follow me. After entering the grand hall, the demon envoy dismissed everyone and went straight to the point. When Your Highness was in the Endless Sea, I was already preparing to obtain Calamity, Immortal Realm Demon Blood. But not too long ago, there was an accident at the Sky Core Division and the channel that connects to the demon world was destroyed. There is no way to rebuild it in a short period of time. His tone was heavy. Past Saint Monarchs have mostly cut down Calamity, Immortal Realm Demon Beasts of the demon world in order to form a Saint Step demon body. But now, this road is no longer possible. Qin frowned. Does the demon envoy mean that I won't be able to form a Saint Step demon body in a short period of time? The demon body cultivation dreaded bottlenecks the most. If one was trapped in the Emperor realm for too long, then even if they obtained demon blood in the future, their chances of making a breakthrough would be greatly reduced. As he thought of this possibility, his complexion paled. No. Could it be that the demon envoy had personally come here to tell him this bad news when he was in a bad mood? Thinking of this, Qin looked up. The demon envoy smiled. Your Highness is truly smart. There will be a chance soon. If Your Highness can grasp it, you will immediately be able to form a Saint Step demon body. Qin nodded, indicating for the demon envoy to continue. Calamity Immortal Realm Demon Beasts are unable to adapt to the rules of the land of divinity and demons. Thus, it is difficult for them to exist in this world. But this isn't something that can be decided. In the depths of the Chu Empire's Sea of Purgatory, there's a Calamity Immortal Demon Beast, a water demon. This beast is cruel and savage by nature and has the supernatural ability to transform into a myriad of forms. Although it is difficult to hunt it down, as long as preparations are made ahead of time, then with Your Highness's cultivation you might have a chance. Sea of Purgatory? After becoming the demonic path's Saint's son, Qin now had the qualifications to come into contact with the vast majority of the world's secrets. After thinking for a moment, he found information about the Sea of Purgatory and immediately frowned. The Sea of Purgatory is a forbidden land of the Chu Empire and is one with the Great Array Formation of the imperial capital. If the Array Formation isn't opened, no one can enter or leave. Even the water demon cannot approach. Lord Demon Envoy, are you joking with me? The demon envoy lightly said, 2 months from now, the Chu Empire will be welcoming its 30 million year founding ceremony. The demonic path will send envoys to congratulate them. According to convention, during the 10 million year celebration, the Chu Empire will open the Sea of Purgatory and allow all cultivators below the Calamity Immortal Realm to enter. They can use their own methods to find lucky chances in return. His eyes were sharp. "This is your highness's chance." In the land of divinity and demons, there were two transcendent powers, the immortal sect and the demonic path. Beneath them were 7 great empires that divided up endless territories. Each of them ruled over a region, and each had an unfathomably deep background. If these 7 empires were ranked, then the Great Chu would be ranked first. No one would have any objections. 30 million years after the Chu Empire was founded, powerhouses had emerged from the Great Chu Empire's imperial family, and there were even several great emperors who possessed great talent and strategies. Over the endless years, they had swallowed up countless countries and constantly expanded their territory. Now, their territory was vast, occupying nearly a fifth of the entire land of divinity and demons. They were a true super empire. Just this point alone was enough for the Chu Empire to be ranked first among the 7 empires. Moreover, the Chu Empire's imperial family had their own inheritances. Every great emperor had a terrifying cultivation at least at the 4th level of Calamity Immortal Realm, and they also had the destiny of the country supporting them. It was enough for them to look down on all others. Qin and Zhao were close to the demonic path. Yin and Qi followed the immortal sect's lead, and Wei and Han huddled together, swaying left and right. Only the Chu Empire was able to stand on equal footing with the immortal and demonic paths. It was because of this that the Great Chu Empire's 30-million-year anniversary celebration became a grand event in the entire land of divinity and demons. As long as there were influences that had the qualifications to do so, they would prepare generous gifts to congratulate them. Of course, part of this was because the Sea of Purgatory was about to open. The Chu Empire's Sea of Purgatory was rumored to have gathered a third of the world's earth veins. It was a transcendent treasure land, and the Chu Empire's ing capital was built by borrowing the strength of this place. Because the Sea of Purgatory was unknown, after the first great Chu Emperor established the capital, he sealed off the sea within capital's Great Array formation. Afterwards, the number of times it was opened could be counted on one hand. But every time it was opened, there would be great lucky chances born. Many powerhouses that shook the land of divinity and demons were born. Thus the Sea of Purgatory's reputation became increasingly resounding. Now that the Chu Empire's 30-million-year anniversary celebration was over, the Sea of Purgatory was destined to open. As long as there was a chance, who would be willing to miss out on it? It was true that the Sea of Purgatory was extremely dangerous, but wealth came from danger. In this world, there was no such thing as a meat pie falling from the sky. For a time, the land of divinity and demons was in turmoil. Immortal sect. It was unknown what reason Purple Moon used to convince the Nether Domain Master and Buddhist Sovereign, but they agreed to allow Shun Yuanin to hide her identity and follow the messenger to Ing Capital. Palace Master. There is a beast in the Sea of Purgatory called a water demon. Its life treasure is the Jade Soul Ice Heart. No matter what, you must obtain it, otherwise, Shin Yuanin had a faint expression. Honorable Master, rest assured that I will slay the water demon and obtain the Jade Soul Ice Heart. She turned and stepped out, vanishing without a trace. Purple Moon took a deep breath. Her voice was icy cold. Remember, you must protect the Palace Master and obtain the Jade Soul Ice Heart, even if you must die. Yes, Elder. Chapter 566. The Great Chu territory was located in the southernmost part of the land of divinity and demons. The climate here was warm and humid, suitable for all living things to grow. The official road was paved with endless fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were farmers in the fields. They stood up and looked at the army leading the way. Even though they knew these were extraordinary figures, they still bowed, not much on their eyes. As the only super empire in the world, this was the confidence of the Great Chu citizens. As long as they didn't make any mistakes, they didn't need to fear anyone. Qin Yu rode atop his horse, wearing the armor of a true demon guard. He restrained his aura and mixed in with the guards, appearing unremarkable at all. As his eyes fell on the calm and steady faces of the farmers, he sighed inwardly. The confidence of the leader of the 7 empires could be seen here. Traveling on the official road was the demonic path delegation to congratulate in capital. They would open a transmission array from the Holy Land's small world until they were 10,000 miles away from the capital region. For the final 10,000 miles, even the revered immortal path and demonic path had to walk one step at a time in order to show their respect to the Great Chu. This was a rule that had been set since the founding of the Great Chu Empire, and no exceptions have been made for anyone. The 300 true demon guards rode horses, surrounding and protecting several luxurious and exquisite carriages. The black, gold, and blue and purple colors were extremely eye-catching. In formal diplomatic occasions, all sorts of flying carriages that swept through the world had lost their dignified aura. The leader of the demonic path's congratulatory delegation was an old man with a long beard. He wore a wide black robe, and his eyes were filled with an imposing aura. This person was surnamed Chun, and he had an extremely high status within the demonic path. But because he didn't care about worldly affairs for many years, he had already faded from the public's eyes. But now, everyone in the delegation, including the 2 Calamity immortal deputy envoys, were extremely respectful towards him, so no one else dared to be insolent. To have the qualifications to be in charge of the diplomatic mission to the Great Chu Empire was enough to prove that this elder Chun hadn't lost any of his influence, even though he had been silent for so many years. However, this elder Chun was extremely cold and aloof. He didn't show any respect to anyone. From the moment the delegation arrived until now, he had only told them that no one was to disturb them and hadn't taken half a step out of the carriage. Chinu looked up at the eye-catching carriage and felt a bit helpless. Was this person arranged by the demon envoy reliable or not? Forget it. I hope that everything goes smoothly. It would be best if Elder Chen doesn't have to make an appearance. Otherwise, things will definitely get out of hand. As he lowered his head and looked away, what Chinu didn't know was that within the carriage, Elder Chun had slowly opened his eyes. Through the gaps in the thick curtains, his eyes fell on him. Elder Chun frowned and sighed. The son of a noble family should not sit in the hall, much less the dignified holy son of the demonic path. This was simply preposterous, but thinking of what the demon envoy had said, the holy son's choice today was one of helplessness. Thinking of this, Elder Chin's frown deepened. Was there no one who had not thought of such a simple principle? The demonic path had been peaceful for a long time, and the people's hearts were becoming increasingly lax. If they couldn't deal with this properly, there would likely be a great upheaval in the future. Ing City was known as the world's most majestic city, so one could well imagine the scale of the city. One could already see the continuous outline of the city from a distance of 3,000 miles away. Even though it was blurry and indistinct, the dignified and heavy atmosphere still assaulted one's senses. Just a glance at it would make one feel suffocated. The great Chu army that was leading the way stopped. The general in charge turned his horse around and came to the side of the carriage. Honorable Envoy, we're about to enter the territory of Ing City. Your entourage will be temporarily settled in the barracks. Elder Chin's calm voice echoed out from the carriage. Of course. After a brief pause, a deputy envoy led 300 true demon guards and some of the accompanying demonic path cultivators to stay behind. They watched as the carriages left under the protection of the Great Chu army. Lord Deputy Envoy, please follow us. The Great Chu army cultivator that was left behind led the group down the official road. After walking for another hour, they entered a barracks. The barracks were clean and tidy, and some courtyards had been built to accommodate the guests. The demonic path cultivators were placed in the southeast corner of the barracks, facing the sun and the wind. The Great Chu army cultivator left after instructing everyone not to casually go out and ask questions in advance. The deputy envoy that was left behind had a calm expression. He swept his eyes over the group of people and lightly said, "Remember, the only thing that matters in this world is strength. The Great Shu Empire has a status equal to the immortal realm and the demonic path. Thus, we have to abide by their rules. You could be dissatisfied, but you can only hide it in your hearts. Whoever causes trouble will have to bear the consequences. Everyone's hearts chilled. They hurriedly cupped their hands together and nodded. The deputy envoy waved his hand for everyone to disperse. Then, his eyes fell on the several true demon guards that were leaving. He frowned and revealed a thoughtful expression. Even now, he didn't know just who these people were. The Great Shu Empire's 30-million-year anniversary celebration would open the Sea of Purgatory. The quota for the diplomatic mission had become extremely precious, and the 300 true demon guards were the escorts. They had the highest quota and the lowest status, so it was much easier to manipulate them. During this period of time, countless people had tossed out favors in order to send their children or nephews into the list. To be able to quietly take 7 spots, one could imagine just how tyrannical the strength of the person behind them was. But what was puzzling was that as the deputy envoy, he hadn't received any notice at all. Either the background of these 7 people was so great that they could completely ignore him, or they had another mission. The deputy envoy's heart chilled. He suppressed his tumbling thoughts. His intuition told him that it was best not to continue paying attention to this matter. Qin Yu discovered that the eyes on him had already moved away. He felt a bit more at ease. Anyone that could be arranged to be the deputy envoy was truly a smart person. He and the 6 people around him had been arranged here. Although they could hide it from others, they couldn't hide it from the main characters of the diplomatic mission. If the deputy envoy was too curious, it would be troublesome. Now it was the best situation. All he needed to do was quietly wait. The #1 empire in the world was worthy of the demonic path, treating it with the utmost respect. Over the endless years, they had planted countless eyes and ears. Disregarding the deaths and injuries, they finally had an accurate information channel. After the 30-million-year anniversary celebration, the Sea of Purgatory would inevitably open. After entering the courtyard, Qin Yu turned and said, "The 6 of you can rest. Before the Sea of Purgatory opens, I will not leave." The 6 true demon guards respectfully nodded. But only 3 returned to their rooms, 2 stayed in the courtyard, and 1 hid in the shadows. Qin Yu knew that the mission they received was to ensure their own safety. He thought about it and didn't say anything else. He nodded to the 2 people in the courtyard and left. Although they were second-class guests that weren't valued too highly and didn't even have the qualifications to enter the Ying capital to participate in the grand celebration, the Great Shu Empire's reception wasn't negligent. Every day, all sorts of delicious food and wine were served. In order to prevent the guests from being bored and causing trouble, there were also many lively programs. The solemn and cold military camp had suddenly transformed into a place where entertainment, food, and entertainment were all gathered together. The courtyard was bustling with activity every day. But no matter how lively it was outside, besides the daily food and drinks being delivered, the gates to Qin Yu's courtyard never opened even once. In Yuya's opinion, the people living in this courtyard were a group of strange people. Their auras were icy cold, and they spoke pitifully few words. Moreover, the way they looked at people was strange, like sharp knives. As Yuya thought about all sorts of rumors about demonic path cultivators, she was extremely nervous. Luckily, although the people living in the courtyard were cold, they didn't make things difficult for her. As time passed, she slowly calmed down, and her eyes weren't as cautious as they were at the start. She even dared to look around. On the 6th day, Yuya pushed open the door and saw the 7th person. She couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. She had always thought that there were only 6 people living in this courtyard. She didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but as her eyes fell on the 7th person, the atmosphere in the courtyard suddenly froze. Yuya was at a loss for what to do, and her face instantly paled. The 7th person said, "The food is very good." With these words, the surrounding oppressive pressure suddenly vanished. Yuya gasped for breath, not daring to speak. She hurriedly laid down the food box, bowed, and left. That night, Yuya had a horrifying nightmare. She felt as if she were drowning as she fell into endless darkness. Just as she was struggling to no avail and despair rose in her heart, a voice sounded out in her ears. "It's fine." The darkness receded like a tide. Yuya's eyes shot open. Her nightgown clung to her body, soaked in a cold sweat from her sleep. In the courtyard, Chinyu looked at the true demon guard standing in the darkness. He lightly said, "It's just an unimportant person. There's no need to be so cautious." He didn't know who this person was, but he didn't like his actions tonight. But, thinking that this person was someone arranged by the demon envoy, and also in order to ensure his own safety, he didn't say anything. The true demon guard seemed a bit surprised. He looked at Chinyu for a moment, and then cupped his hands across his chest. "It won't happen again." Chinyu nodded. He turned and returned to his room. He took a deep breath and calmed the nervousness in his heart. The demonic path's holy palace's saint's son. This identity was enough to attract all sorts of attention. Once he was exposed, it would inevitably lead to unpredictable consequences. Originally, Chinyu had comforted himself that the demon envoy's arrangements were extremely appropriate and that his journey here had been smooth. There shouldn't be any accidents. But the actions of the true demon guard reminded him once more that while he had come to the inn capital while concealing his identity, there were actually tremendous dangers hidden within. The demonic path was already strong enough. Even if one disregarded their mortal enemy, the immortal sect, there were still countless people that didn't want to see the holy palace smoothly produce a new holy lord. For instance, the great Chu royal family. He bitterly smiled. It was only now that Chinyu was able to determine that he had been nervous in his heart, so he had cautiously stayed in the courtyard without taking a single step out. Then, why had he suddenly had a sudden impulse to push open the door and enter the courtyard during the day? Now that he thought about it, Chinyu still had no clue. Towards this, although the true demon guard and the others didn't say anything, Chinyu was well aware that they would likely complain in their hearts. He shook his head and suppressed the tumbling restlessness in his heart. His eyes became firm once more. It was impossible for him to wait. He didn't know how long it would take for the channel to the demon world to be repaired. The water demon in the sea of purgatory was the key to him becoming a holy lord, so the risks were completely worth it. Chinyu sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes, continuing to perceive the inheritance of the holy palace. This was a great supernatural ability of the demonic path that could be used in conjunction with the demon body. Although its might was average, it was still very helpful to cultivating the demon body. Ever since he obtained the stone tablet inheritance, Chinyu had been meditating on it. Not long ago, he had finally managed to peek into the gate and feel the subtle transformations of his mortal body. Although the key to becoming a saint-step demon body was the calamity immortal realm demon blood, not everyone who obtained demon blood would be able to smoothly make a breakthrough to the Emperor's step. There is also a certain chance of success, and the stronger the demon body and the deeper the foundation, the higher the chances of success would be. Even though his cultivation of water had stagnated because he was perceiving the inheritance of the holy palace, Chinyu didn't hesitate at all. Becoming a saint-step demon body and inheriting the throne of the Holy Lord was the most important matter right now. For the next several days, Yuya didn't see the seventh person living in the courtyard again. But the more she did this, the more she couldn't forget the words she heard in her dreams. That voice was particularly clear. It had to be him. But why would this person's voice appear in her dreams? Yuya thought about it for a long time. Then, she changed her story and told her little sisters around her. As a result, she was mercilessly laughed at by them, saying that she was just budding in love. The young women responsible for taking care of the guests in the barracks were all transferred from the great imperial plantations around in capital. Their backgrounds couldn't be considered noble, and this assignment was a chance for them to fly up the branches. If they could enter the congratulatory procession, even if they didn't have the qualifications to enter in capital, their backgrounds were still extraordinary. If they could climb up to them, they could change their destiny. Although they would have to leave their homes in the future, to the women of the imperial plantations, their destinies weren't in their control. Rather than not knowing where they would be sent in the future, they might as well take a gamble. Because of this, there was a great deal of flirtatious news spreading out from the barracks. Some of the guests were beaming with joy. It was clear that they were having a great time. Yuya's face flushed red. But how could she clearly explain this sort of thing? She argued for a bit and then shut her mouth. She regretted saying this earlier. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have said anything. When the group of sisters dispersed, a cousin who was not close to Yuya called out to her, who was about to leave. Her expression was very solemn. I hope what you said is true and that you didn't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. Although it's good to climb up the social ladder, you must remember that you and I are from the imperial plantations of the Chu country. Even if we successfully leave with someone, can we really be trusted? In a woman's life, she only has one chance to make a choice. Don't regret it. Yuya knew that her cousin was speaking from the bottom of her heart. Before coming to the barracks, her parents had already told her something similar. She said gratefully, "Thank you for reminding me, cousin. I will remember it. I won't make a mistake." Her cousin's expression softened. She nodded and left. Unexpectedly discovering that her distant cousin cared about her, Yuya's mood improved for 2 days. She didn't want to delve too deeply into the matter of the voice in her dreams. He was a demonic cultivator and would soon leave the Chu country. No matter what the reason was, she would let it go. But when she warned Yuya's cousin, she encountered trouble. In the courtyard she was in charge of, a guest had taken a fancy to her. She had tried to probe her a few times, but her cousin had dodged all of them. Although the guest was unhappy, he didn't want to cause trouble. The matter should have been over. But today, the guest was having a banquet in the courtyard. Perhaps he had drunk too much wine and reverted to his old ways. No one knew what had happened, but in the end, he made a big fuss. When Yuya heard the news and rushed over, her cousin was lying on the ground. The corner of her mouth was broken, and her face was pale. In the courtyard, a man in his 30s sat boldly. He had a sinister look on his face. "Smelly whore, I gave you face, but you didn't want it. You actually dared to splash wine on me. Did you not know who I am? Today, I'll give you a chance. Call all the people you can call. If they can't suppress me, you can stay here tonight." Yuya trembled in fear. Most of the people in the imperial plantations came from sinners and were considered exiles. They didn't have much status in the Chu country. If they offended a guest, no matter what the reason was, it would be a big mistake. Thinking of her cousin's warning, Yuya bit her lip, turned around, and quickly left. She found the steward responsible for this matter, but the other party's attitude was ambiguous. He only said that it wasn't good to meddle in this matter. She found someone to contact her family. After asking around, she found out that the guest her cousin was in charge of was actually a relative of the Chu country's royal family. Although they were only a side branch, they were still considered masters. How could these palace stewards dare to meddle in this matter? They were afraid that things would turn out badly for them. In their eyes, this was only a lowly sinner from the imperial plantations. Moreover, that young master had said that he wouldn't harm her life, so this was even less of a problem. Yuya's family quickly sent a letter telling her not to meddle in this matter, otherwise even she might be implicated. As Yuya thought of her cousin lying on the ground with all the blood draining from her face, she felt extremely sad. But what could she do? As she panicked, a thought suddenly popped up in her mind. Yuya felt as if she had gone insane. But if she didn't try harder, her cousin's life would be ruined. That person, would he be willing to help? In his room, Yu was meditating. In his mind, there was a giant with the sun, moon, and stars above its head. Its feet stepped on mountains, rivers, and seas, and it ran forwards. Every step it took caused the stars to tremble and the earth to collapse. Suddenly, the giant roared and came to a stop. The stars above its head and the earth beneath its feet rapidly vanished from sight. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.